In this video, we'll explore the fascinating geography of Australia in depth. Let's dive in. So, let's start off by taking a look at Australia's size. Australia covers about 7.7 million square kilometers. To put that in perspective, you could fit the entire United States into Australia and still have room left over. Australia is the world's smallest continent, but also the sixth largest country on the planet. Australia sits between the Indian and Pacific Oceans. It stretches nearly 4,000 kilometers from east to west. That's wider than the United States. North to south, it's about 3,860 kilometers, so you get everything from the tropical tip of Cape York down to Tasmania's shores. The continent sits between 10 and 44 degrees south latitude, which means it has quite a bit of diversity. There are tropical rainforests up north with crocodiles and cassowaries, temperate coastlines down south with penguins and seals, desert areas in the middle for hundreds of kilometers, mountains on the east that get snow coverage for half the year. The isolation is one of Australia's defining characteristics. There are thousands of kilometers of ocean in every direction. The nearest major landmass is New Zealand, and that's still 2,000 kilometers away. Antarctica is 3,000 kilometers south. Indonesia is closer, but still over 600 kilometers across ocean. This isolation has turned Australia into a natural laboratory where evolution has taken some unique paths. There are animals that lay eggs but produce milk, mammals with pouches that carry babies for extended periods, plants that are adapted to bushfires and regrow from the ashes, fish that can walk on land and climb trees, sharks that can survive in freshwater rivers, birds that can't fly but can run up to 50 kilometers per hour. The coastline alone is about 59,681 kilometers. That's quite extensive. Most of that coastline consists of beaches and cliffs. The eastern side of Australia has a major mountain system, the Great Dividing Range. This stretches for over 3,700 kilometers. That's longer than the Rocky Mountains and the entire coast of California. It starts up in Queensland's Cape York Peninsula, where there's tropical rainforest and jungle. Then it runs down through New South Wales, where it picks up snow-capped peaks and gorges. It continues through Victoria, with rolling green hills and wine-producing regions. Then it curves westward to end up in the Grampians. This range serves as Australia's main watershed. Rivers on the eastern side flow to the Pacific Ocean and reach the coast in a few hundred kilometers. The western side flows into the interior. Some of those rivers travel over 2,000 kilometers before they reach the sea. Most of this mountain system sits between 300 and 1,600 meters in elevation. There are the Blue Mountains near Sydney with their cliff faces and eucalyptus forests that create a blue haze from the oils in the air. The Australian Alps, down south where you can ski and snowboard. The Grampians in Victoria with peaks and ancient Aboriginal rock art. The system contains several major rivers. The Murray River starts here, and it's Australia's longest river at 2,508 kilometers. The Murrumbidgee River, which means big water in the local Aboriginal language. The Snowy River, though it's been modified through damming and diversion. All of these start as mountain streams emerging from rocky outcrops. The range also creates distinct climate zones. Eastern slopes get rain from ocean winds. Western slopes are much drier. That's why you get forests on one side and grasslands on the other. In Australia's central regions, there are two notable rock formations. Right in the middle of what's called the Red Centre, you have these monolithic structures. Uluru is the most prominent. It's the world's largest single rock formation. This formation stands 348 meters above the desert floor. That's taller than the Chrysler Building. It stretches 2.5 kilometers long and 1.6 kilometers wide. The circumference around the base is 9.4 kilometers, which takes about 3 hours to walk around. 25 kilometers away, there's Kata Tjuta. That translates to many heads in the local Pitjant Jajara language. It's a collection of 36 dome-shaped rocks scattered across the landscape. It covers over 21 square kilometers. The tallest dome is Mount Olga at 1,066 meters above sea level. It actually stands 198 meters higher than Uluru itself. These formations are made of different rock types. Uluru is reddish sandstone called arkose, made from feldspar and quartz grains that were eroded from granite mountains over millions of years. Kata Tjuta is conglomerate rock, which is different stone fragments that have been cemented together through geological processes. The red and orange color that these rocks are known for comes from iron oxide coating the surface. This creates a natural coating that changes throughout the day, depending on the sun's angle. At sunrise, they appear purple and pink. At midday, they're bright orange and red. At sunset, they turn deep burgundy and brown. These formations have cultural importance to Aboriginal people and have been sacred sites for tens of thousands of years. The stories and ceremonies connected to these places go back to what's called the Dream Time. Moving west, we encounter the Great Western Plateau. Nearly two-thirds of the entire continent sits on this geological formation. It covers approximately 2.7 million square kilometers. That's bigger than all of Western Europe combined, bigger than India, and 3 times bigger than Texas. This plateau consists of some of the oldest rocks on Earth. It's part of what used to be the Gondwana supercontinent that broke apart 180 million years ago. These geological formations have been relatively unchanged for hundreds of millions of years. Some rocks date back 3.8 billion years. The plateau stretches from the Kimberley region up north with its gorges and ancient Aboriginal rock art, down to the Nullarbor Plain in the south, where there's very little vegetation for 1,200 kilometers. Nullarbor means no trees in Latin. It covers large portions of Western Australia, South Australia, and the Northern Territory. The terrain is notably flat. Most of it sits between 200 and 500 meters above sea level. You get rolling landscapes that extend to the horizon with minimal elevation changes. The climate is quite harsh. Most areas receive less than 400 millimeters of rain per year. Some areas get less than 200 millimeters. That's desert-level precipitation. Temperatures can reach 50 degrees Celsius in summer and drop below freezing during winter nights. Despite appearing empty, this region contains some of the world's oldest rock formations and valuable mineral deposits. There are Jack Hill's zircon crystals that formed during Earth's early development, iron ore deposits that supply a significant portion of the world's steel production. The Pilbara region alone produces over 900 million tons of iron ore annually. There are also gold mines, nickel deposits, copper mines, and uranium deposits. The mining towns out here are quite remote, some of the most isolated communities in Australia. Many workers fly in and fly out for their shifts. In the southeastern corner, Australia has a different type of landscape, the Australian Alps. It's a mountain range that receives snow coverage. Mount Kosciuszko is located in the center of this region, and it's Australia's highest mainland peak at 2,228 meters. It was named in 1840 by Polish explorer Paul Strzelecki after a Polish military leader. Kosciuszko had fought in the American Revolution and later led an uprising against Russian rule. During winter, these mountains receive substantial snow coverage. There are alpine conditions here. It's Australia's main skiing destination. Temperatures regularly drop below freezing from June through September, and snowfields can last for months, sometimes into October during good snow years. The region includes several peaks over 2,000 meters in elevation. Mount Townsend at 2,209 meters, Mount Twinom at 2,195 meters, Mount Jagungal at 2,061 meters. These are made of granite and metamorphic rocks that have been shaped by geological processes over millions of years. They were carved by glaciers during past ice ages, when the region was covered by ice sheets. These mountains serve as the source for several major river systems. The Snowy River starts here and flows down to the coast. Parts of the Murray River system begin as alpine streams in plateau areas. The Murrumbidgee River headwaters also start in this high country. Alpine vegetation covers the higher elevations. Snow gums grow in wind-sculpted forms. Alpine herbs bloom during the short summer growing season. Alpine ash forests fill the valleys. There's quite a contrast here. You can ski in the morning at places like Thredbo or Perisher and drive 3 hours to be swimming at the beach. Australia's desert systems cover a substantial area and show considerable variety. There's a collection of named deserts covering 1.37 million square kilometers. That makes it the 5th largest desert system in the world. Nearly 18% of the continent is officially classified as desert. Some estimates suggest that up to 35% of Australia receives precipitation levels that could qualify as desert conditions. The Great Victoria Desert is the largest, spreading across 348,750 square kilometers. That's bigger than Poland or Germany. It has red sand plains and scattered salt lakes that might fill with water once in a decade. Satellite images show it resembles Mars, and space agencies actually use these areas to test Mars rovers. The Great Sandy Desert covers 267,250 square kilometers across Western Australia and Northern Territory. It's known for parallel sand ridges that run northwest to southeast. Some of these ridges extend for over 200 kilometers without interruption. The Gibson Desert covers 156,000 square kilometers in Western Australia. It was named after Alfred Gibson, who disappeared during an 1873 expedition and was never found. It's characterized by laterite surfaces and scattered rock outcrops. The Simpson Desert covers 176,500 square kilometers across Queensland, South Australia, and Northern Territory. It features some of the world's longest parallel sand dunes. There are over 1,100 parallel ridges running roughly north-south, with some dunes extending 200 kilometers. From the air, it creates a pattern of red ridges and valleys. The Tanami Desert spans 184,500 square kilometers in a remote region between the Great Sandy and Central Deserts. It's known for gold mining operations. Each desert has its own characteristics and environment. The plants and animals in these areas have developed adaptations to survive the harsh conditions. Along Victoria's coastline, there are some notable rock formations. The 12 Apostles rise directly from the Southern Ocean. There's something worth noting about the name, though. There were never actually 12 of them. The name was chosen over the original names, like the Sow and Pigs. When explorers first documented these limestone stacks, there were only 9. Currently, there are 7 standing, because 2 have collapsed in recent years. A 50-meter-tall stack collapsed in 2005, which happened in front of tourists. These limestone pillars rise up to 50 meters above the ocean level. That's roughly equivalent to a 15-story building emerging from the water. They're the result of thousands of years of wave action from the Southern Ocean. The waves continuously undercut the limestone cliffs and initially create sea caves. Over time, these caves expand and eventually break through to form arches. The arches continue to erode until they collapse, leaving isolated stacks in the water. This is an ongoing geological process that you can observe. There are visible cracks in the rock, and pieces fall into the sea during storms. The limestone surfaces change color throughout the day, from pale yellow to deep orange, depending on the light. These formations are part of Port Campbell National Park along the Great Ocean Road. New stacks will continue to form over time as existing headlands are worn away by ocean erosion. It's a dynamic coastal environment where geological processes are actively shaping the landscape. Australian rocks contain information about some very old geological periods. Some formations date back 4.4 billion years. These are ancient zircon crystals found in Western Australia's Jack Hills that formed when Earth was less than 200 million years old. They're among the oldest materials found on our planet, older than the Moon and most of the solar system. Australia sits on what's called the Australian Craton, which is a large piece of ancient continental crust that has been stable for billions of years. The Pilbara and Yilgarn Cratons in Western Australia contain rocks over 3.5 billion years old. They preserve some of the earliest evidence of life on Earth in ancient stromatolites and microfossils. These are fossilized bacterial mats that show life existed when Earth was still developing the ability to support complex organisms. The Archean rocks of the Pilbara region date between 2.5 and 3.8 billion years old. They're among the best preserved examples of early continental crust anywhere on the planet. Much of Central and Western Australia formed during the Proterozoic era, between 2.5 billion and 540 million years ago, when the first eukaryotic cells were evolving. Australia contains evidence of nearly every major period in Earth's geological history. Continental crust formation, early life development, major extinction events, ice ages, volcanic activity, and tectonic movements. Aboriginal people have oral histories going back tens of thousands of years, but the geological record extends much further. These rocks have been present through continental movements, ocean level changes, and major climate shifts from tropical to ice age conditions. Running down Australia's eastern coast, there's a major cliff system. The Great Escarpment extends for 3,600 kilometers from Queensland down to Victoria. That's longer than the entire United States coastline. It's a natural formation that rises from the coastal plains. It reaches several hundred meters above sea level in most places, with some sections over 1,000 meters high. It marks the edge of elevated plateau country that extends inland for hundreds of kilometers. This formation developed about 80 million years ago during a period of geological activity when Australia was separating from Antarctica. This created new continental margins and began a process of escarpment retreat through erosion that continues today. Unlike mountain ranges formed by tectonic plate collisions, this represents the edge of an uplifted plateau that has been carved by erosion over millions of years. There's a steep eastern face that rises from relatively flat coastal lowlands. It varies in height and character along its length. The most dramatic section is in the Blue Mountains west of Sydney, where there are sheer sandstone cliffs rising hundreds of meters above deep valleys. There are carved gorges with waterfalls, including the Three Sisters Rock Formation and Katoomba Falls. In some places, the escarpment sits 200 to 300 kilometers inland from the coast and creates elevated plateaus, like the New England tablelands, northern tablelands, and southern tablelands. These are cut by rivers flowing eastward toward the sea. Over millions of years, these rivers have carved gorges through the escarpment. Waterfalls drop hundreds of meters from the plateau edge and expose ancient rock formations in canyon walls. Underground Australia contains extensive cave systems. There are limestone caves, underground rivers, and geological formations. The Jenolan Caves in New South Wales are among the world's oldest accessible cave systems. They've been forming for over 340 million years, which predates dinosaurs. There are 11 different show caves that can be toured, each with different characteristics. There are stalactites hanging from ceilings, and some measure 20 meters in length. Stalagmites grow from the floors, taking thousands of years to form each centimeter. There are flowstone formations. Lucas Cave has a large chamber called the Cathedral that could accommodate an actual cathedral. Orient Cave has formations that resemble wedding cakes and organ pipes. Temple of Baal contains crystal pools. These were all carved by underground streams over hundreds of millions of years. The Mount Gambier region in South Australia has underwater caves and sinkholes. Blue Lake sits in an extinct volcanic crater, and the water changes color seasonally from steel blue to turquoise. The Engelbrecht Cave system attracts cave divers because it has clear, thermally stable waters. Underwater visibility can exceed 80 meters, and the water temperature remains constant year-round. The Yarrangobilly Caves in Kosciuszko National Park contain limestone formations from the Silurian period, about 400 million years old. There are chambers with formations that have been developing for millennia, plus thermal pools where people can swim underground. Tasmania's Mole Creek region contains over 300 caves within its limestone landscape. That's more caves per square kilometer than most places on Earth. The caves contain unique ecosystems adapted to life in perpetual darkness. There are specialized cave fauna that have evolved over thousands of years. So now let's take a look at Australia's coastline. Australia has about 59,681 kilometers of coastline. That's the sixth longest coastline of any country in the world. Canada has the longest, then Norway, then Indonesia. Australia comes in at number 6. So what's special about Australia's coastline? Well, there's quite a variety there. You've got tropical beaches up north, rocky coastlines down south. The northern coastlines are generally warmer, with coral reefs and mangroves. The southern coastlines are cooler, with cliff formations. About 85% of the population lives within 50 kilometers of the coast. Why do so many people live near the coast? Well, historically, that's where the ports were built. Plus, the climate is often better near the coast. The interior can get pretty hot and dry, so it makes sense that people would settle near the water. The coastline varies quite a bit in terms of what it's made of. Some areas have sandy beaches, others have rocky shores, and some have muddy mangrove areas. Each type of coastline supports different kinds of marine life. The coastline is also constantly changing. Waves and tides are always eroding some areas and building up others. Australia's coastline faces different challenges in different areas. In the north, cyclones can cause major damage. In the south, winter storms can be rough. Climate change is also affecting the coastline. Sea levels are rising, which means some coastal areas might get flooded more often in the future. The government spends quite a bit of money maintaining coastal infrastructure, like ports, roads, and seawalls. Different states manage their coastlines differently. Some focus more on conservation, others on development. Tourism is also a big part of the coastal economy. Millions of people visit Australian beaches every year. The coastline also supports major industries like fishing, shipping, and oil and gas extraction. Now let's talk about the Great Barrier Reef. This is probably Australia's most famous marine feature. The Great Barrier Reef stretches for about 2,300 kilometers along the Queensland coast. That makes it the world's largest coral reef system. It covers an area of approximately 344,400 square kilometers. You can actually see it from space. The reef is made up of over 2,900 individual coral reefs, so it's thousands of smaller reefs all connected together. What lives in the reef? Well, quite a lot actually. There are over 1,500 species of fish living in the reef, plus about 400 types of coral. Then you've got sea turtles, dolphins, whales, sharks, and hundreds of other species. The reef is also important economically. Tourism related to the Great Barrier Reef brings in billions of dollars each year. People come from all over the world to see it. But the reef does face some challenges. Climate change and ocean warming have caused coral bleaching in recent years. What's coral bleaching? Well, when the water gets too warm, the coral loses its color and can die. There are ongoing efforts to protect and preserve this ecosystem. Scientists are working on various projects to help the reef recover and adapt. The reef is also listed as a World Heritage Site. That means it's recognized as having outstanding value to humanity. The reef supports about 64,000 jobs in Queensland. Most of these jobs are in tourism, but there are also jobs in research and reef management. The reef is divided into different zones. Some zones allow fishing, others don't. Some allow tourism, others are off limits to protect sensitive areas. The reef extends from the Torres Strait in the north down to just north of Bundaberg in the south. It's not a continuous reef, though. There are channels and passages between the different reef sections that allow ships to pass through. So moving west, let's talk about the Ningaloo Reef. The Ningaloo Reef is found on the western coast of Australia. It's in Western Australia, off the coast near a town called Exmouth. The Ningaloo Reef is about 300 kilometers long. That makes it smaller than the Great Barrier Reef, but it's still significant. What makes Ningaloo special? Well, it's much closer to the shore than the Great Barrier Reef. In some places, you can just walk off the beach and start snorkeling right on the reef. The reef is famous for whale sharks. Whale sharks are the largest fish in the world. They can grow up to 18 meters long. Despite their size, they're completely harmless to humans. They just eat plankton and small fish. Between March and August each year, whale sharks visit the Ningaloo Reef to feed. That makes it one of the best places in the world to swim with whale sharks. People come from all over the world for that experience. The reef is also home to manta rays, turtles, and hundreds of species of fish. Like the Great Barrier Reef, Ningaloo is also a World Heritage Site. The waters around Ningaloo are generally clearer than those around the Great Barrier Reef. The reef is also less crowded than the Great Barrier Reef. Ningaloo is also known for its humpback whale migration. Between June and November, thousands of humpback whales pass by the reef on their way to and from their breeding grounds. You can often see them from the shore. The reef also has some surfing spots, particularly around the town of Exmouth. The Ningaloo coast was listed as a World Heritage Site in 2011. The area includes the terrestrial areas behind the coast, including Cape Range National Park. Now let's look at some of Australia's major peninsulas and capes. Australia has quite a few significant peninsulas. A peninsula is a piece of land that sticks out into the water, surrounded by water on three sides. The biggest peninsula in Australia is Cape York Peninsula. This is up in northern Queensland. Cape York Peninsula covers about 137,000 square kilometers. The tip of Cape York Peninsula is the northernmost point of mainland Australia. It's only about 150 kilometers from Papua New Guinea. The peninsula is pretty remote. There aren't many roads up there, and some areas can only be reached by four-wheel drive. Another significant peninsula is the Eyre Peninsula in South Australia. This peninsula is on the western side of South Australia. It's got Port Lincoln at its southern tip. Port Lincoln is famous for its seafood, particularly tuna. The Eyre Peninsula is also known for its wheat farming. Then you've got the York Peninsula, also in South Australia. This one is east of the Eyre Peninsula. The York Peninsula is known for its copper mining history. What about capes? Well, Australia has some famous capes too. Cape Byron is the easternmost point of mainland Australia. It's in New South Wales, near a town called Byron Bay. Cape Byron is popular with tourists. There's a lighthouse there that was built in 1901. People like to visit Cape Byron to say they've been to the easternmost point of Australia. Then there's Cape Leeuwin down in Western Australia. This is where the Indian Ocean meets the Southern Ocean. Cape Leeuwin is the southwesternmost point of Australia. There's also a lighthouse there, built in 1895. These lighthouses were built to help ships navigate safely around the coast. Many of them are still operating today, though they're mostly automated now. Australia also has Cape York at the northern tip, and Cape Londonderry in Western Australia is another significant cape. So, what about Australia's bays and gulfs? Australia has some significant ones. The biggest is probably the Great Australian Bight. That's a huge bay along the southern coast of Australia. It stretches from Western Australia across to South Australia. The Great Australian Bight is famous for its dramatic cliffs. These cliffs drop straight down into the ocean for hundreds of meters. It's also known for southern right whales. These whales come to the Bight to breed and give birth. That happens between May and October each year. The whales can often be seen from the cliffs. Then you've got Spencer Gulf in South Australia. Spencer Gulf is pretty big, stretching inland for about 300 kilometers. The Gulf is important for shipping and fishing. There's also Gulf St. Vincent, also in South Australia. This gulf is smaller than Spencer Gulf, but it's where Adelaide is located. Adelaide is South Australia's capital city. Up north you've got the Gulf of Carpentaria. This is a big gulf between Queensland and the Northern Territory. The Gulf of Carpentaria is pretty shallow compared to other gulfs. It's also known for its fishing industry, particularly prawns. The gulf experiences some extreme tides. Then there's Shark Bay in Western Australia. Despite its name, Shark Bay isn't particularly dangerous. It's actually a World Heritage Site. Shark Bay is famous for its dolphins and dugongs. Dugongs are large marine mammals, sometimes called sea cows. They're related to manatees. Shark Bay has one of the largest populations of dugongs in the world. The bay is also known for its stromatolites. These are some of the oldest living things on Earth. They're basically rocks formed by ancient bacteria. You can see them in the shallow waters of the bay. Other significant bays include Jervis Bay in New South Wales and Port Phillip Bay in Victoria, where Melbourne is located. Now let's talk about Australia's island geography. Obviously, Tasmania is the biggest island, but there are quite a few other significant islands around Australia. Tasmania is found south of Victoria. It's separated from the mainland by Bass Strait. Bass Strait is about 240 kilometers wide at its narrowest point. Tasmania covers about 68,400 square kilometers. That makes it Australia's largest island by far. But there are plenty of other islands too. Kangaroo Island is off the coast of South Australia. It covers about 4,400 square kilometers. Kangaroo Island is famous for its wildlife. It's got echidnas, kangaroos, koalas, and lots of native birds. The island was badly affected by bushfires in 2020. Then you've got Fraser Island, off the coast of Queensland. Fraser Island is the world's largest sand island. The whole island is basically made of sand. Despite being made of sand, Fraser Island has rainforests growing on it. The island also has freshwater lakes. King Island is in Bass Strait, between Tasmania and Victoria. King Island is known for its dairy products and seafood. The island produces cheese. Then there's Rottnest Island, off the coast of Western Australia near Perth. Rottnest Island is famous for quokkas. Quokkas are small marsupials that are found almost nowhere else in the world. They're known for looking like they're smiling. People love taking selfies with quokkas on Rottnest Island. There's also Lord Howe Island, which is way out in the Pacific Ocean. It's a World Heritage Site known for its unique plants and animals. The island only allows 400 tourists at a time to protect its environment. Other significant islands include Phillip Island in Victoria, famous for its penguin parade, and Christmas Island, which is an Australian territory in the Indian Ocean, known for its red crab migration. So let's talk about coastal dune systems. Australia has some impressive sand dune systems along its coastlines. Sand dunes form when wind blows sand inland from beaches. Over time, these dunes can get quite large. The biggest coastal dune system in Australia is probably around Stockton Beach in New South Wales. These dunes stretch for about 32 kilometers. Some of the dunes are over 40 meters high. People like to go sandboarding on these dunes. Sandboarding is like snowboarding but on sand instead of snow. You can rent boards and slide down the dunes. Another significant dune system is at the Coorong in South Australia. The Coorong is a long lagoon that runs parallel to the coast. Behind the lagoon are extensive sand dunes. These dunes are important for protecting the inland areas from coastal erosion. Then you've got the dunes around Port Stephens in New South Wales. These dunes are also popular for sandboarding and four-wheel driving. Sand dunes are important ecosystems. They provide habitat for various plants and animals. They also help protect the coastline from storm damage. When big waves and storms hit the coast, the sand dunes absorb some of the energy. Sand dunes can move over time. Wind can blow the sand around, causing the dunes to shift. That's why it's important to have vegetation growing on the dunes. The plant roots help hold the sand in place. Some coastal towns have problems with sand dunes moving and covering roads or buildings. That's why dune management is important. Some areas use fences and plantings to try to control where the sand goes. The Cronulla sand dunes in Sydney were once much larger, but have been reduced by sand mining over the years. Western Australia also has some significant dune systems, particularly around Perth and along the coast towards Geraldton. Now let's look at Australia's mangrove ecosystems. Mangroves are trees that grow in salt water. They're found along tropical and subtropical coastlines. Australia has quite a lot of mangroves, particularly along the northern coast. What makes mangroves special? Well, they can live in salt water, which most trees can't do. They have special roots that filter out the salt. Mangroves are important ecosystems. They provide nursery areas for many fish species. Young fish hide among the mangrove roots where they're protected from predators. Mangroves also help protect the coastline from erosion. Their roots help hold the sediment in place. Australia has about 8,000 square kilometers of mangroves. Most of these mangroves are found in Queensland, the Northern Territory, and Western Australia. The biggest mangrove area is probably around the Gulf of Carpentaria. There are also significant mangrove areas around Darwin and in the Kimberley region of Western Australia. Mangroves face some threats, though. Coastal development can destroy mangrove areas. Climate change and sea level rise also pose challenges, but there are efforts to protect and restore mangrove ecosystems because they're so important for marine life and coastal protection. Mangroves are also important for carbon storage. They store more carbon per hectare than most other types of forests. There are different types of mangroves found in Australia. Some grow in deeper water, others prefer shallow areas. Some mangroves have special breathing roots that stick up out of the water. Others have roots that drop down from their branches. All of these adaptations help them survive in the challenging saltwater environment. Australia has about 35 different species of mangroves. The northern coastline from Queensland to Western Australia has the most extensive mangrove systems, while southern Australia has fewer mangroves due to the cooler climate. So what about tides around Australia? Australia experiences quite varied tidal patterns around its coastline. Tides are caused by the gravitational pull of the moon and Sunday. The tidal range varies quite a bit depending on where you are. In some places, the difference between high tide and low tide is just a meter or two. In other places, it can be over 10 meters. The biggest tidal ranges in Australia are found in the northwest. Around places like Broome in Western Australia, the tidal range can be over 10 meters. The tides there happen twice a day, so the water level is constantly changing. You can actually walk out onto areas of the seabed when the tide is out. In the south, the tidal ranges are generally smaller. Around Adelaide or Melbourne, the tidal range is usually only about 1 to 2 meters. The tides around Sydney are also relatively small, usually less than 2 meters. Australia also experiences some unusual tidal phenomena. In some areas, particularly in the north, you get what's called a tidal bore. A tidal bore is when the incoming tide forms a wave that travels up a river. The tide is so strong that it pushes water upstream against the normal flow of the river. Some rivers in northern Australia experience tidal bores. The Ord River in Western Australia is one example. Tides are important for marine ecosystems. Many animals time their feeding and breeding activities around the tides. Fishermen also need to understand the tides to know when and where to fish. Port operations also depend heavily on tides. Large ships often need to wait for high tide to enter or leave port safely. The King Sound area in Western Australia has some of the most extreme tides in the world, with ranges exceeding 11 meters during spring tides. Let's talk about Australia's marine parks and sanctuaries. Australia has quite an extensive system of marine protected areas. These are areas where fishing and other activities are restricted to protect marine ecosystems. The biggest marine park is the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park. This covers most of the Great Barrier Reef area. Within this marine park, there are different zones with different levels of protection. Some areas allow fishing, others don't. Some areas allow tourism, others are completely off limits. Then there's the Ningaloo Marine Park, which protects the Ningaloo Reef. There are also marine parks around Lord Howe Island, Norfolk Island, and other offshore areas. In total, Australia has about 60 marine parks covering over 3 million square kilometers of ocean. These marine parks are important for protecting marine biodiversity. They provide safe areas where fish and other marine animals can breed and grow. This helps maintain healthy fish populations both inside and outside the marine parks. Marine parks also protect important habitats like coral reefs, seagrass beds, and seamounts. The marine parks are managed by the Australian government in cooperation with state governments. There are ongoing debates about the right balance between conservation and allowing activities like fishing and tourism, but most people agree that protecting marine ecosystems is important for the future. Some marine parks are no-take zones, which means no fishing at all is allowed. Others allow recreational fishing, but not commercial fishing. The marine parks also help protect against threats like pollution and coastal development. Scientists regularly monitor the marine parks to see how well they're working. They track things like fish populations, coral health, and water quality. This information helps park managers make decisions about how to best protect these important marine areas. The marine park system was expanded significantly in 2012, though some changes were made in 2018 following consultation with fishing and other industries. But before we continue the video, subscribe to our channel. So let's take a look at the Murray-Darling Basin system. This is Australia's largest river system. The Murray-Darling Basin covers about 1 million square kilometers. That's about 14% of Australia's total land area. The basin stretches across 4 states and 1 territory. It covers parts of Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia, and the Australian Capital Territory. The system is made up of two main rivers, the Murray and the Darling, plus their tributaries. What's a tributary? Well, it's a smaller river that flows into a larger one. The Murray-Darling system has hundreds of tributaries. About 40% of Australia's agricultural production comes from the Murray-Darling Basin. That includes wheat, rice, cotton, and fruit. The system supports about 2.6 million people who live in the basin. Water allocation is a big issue. Different states want to use the water for different things. There's also the problem of over-allocation. That means more water has been promised to users than actually flows in the rivers during dry years. Climate change is affecting the basin. Rainfall patterns are changing, and there are more frequent droughts. The basin produces most of Australia's rice, about 95% of it. It also produces about 50% of Australia's wheat. Cotton is another major crop grown in the basin. The irrigation systems in the basin are extensive. There are thousands of kilometers of irrigation channels. The basin has many wetlands. Some of the wetlands are internationally recognized under the Ramsar Convention. The Murray-Darling Basin Authority manages the river system. This authority was set up to coordinate water management between the different states. Now let's talk about the major rivers in the Murray-Darling system. The Murray River is Australia's longest river. It flows for about 2,508 kilometers from the Australian Alps to the ocean in South Australia. The Murray River starts in the Snowy Mountains near Mount Kosciuszko. It flows northwest through New South Wales, then forms the border between New South Wales and Victoria. Finally, it flows through South Australia to the ocean near Adelaide. The Darling River is the second longest river in Australia. It flows for about 1,472 kilometers. The Darling starts in southern Queensland and flows southwest through New South Wales until it joins the Murray River. The Murrumbidgee River is another major river in the system. It flows for about 1,485 kilometers. The Murrumbidgee starts in the Australian Alps and flows through the Australian Capital Territory and New South Wales before joining the Murray River. These rivers don't flow consistently throughout the year. In some seasons they flow strongly, in others they can be quite low. During droughts, some sections of these rivers can stop flowing altogether. The rivers carry sediment, that's soil and sand that gets washed into the rivers. This sediment eventually reaches the ocean. The Murray River has many tributaries. Some of the major ones include the Goulburn River, the Campaspe River, and the Loddon River in Victoria. In New South Wales, major tributaries include the Edward River and the Wacool River. The Darling River also has many tributaries. The Namoy River, the Gwydir River, and the Macquarie River all flow into the Darling. The flow of these rivers is heavily regulated. There are many dams and weirs along their length. So, what about Lake Eyre and the Salt Lake systems? Lake Eyre is Australia's largest lake when it's full, but it's usually not full. Lake Eyre is what's called an ephemeral lake. That means it only has water in it sometimes. Most of the time, Lake Eyre is just a big salt flat. The lake is located in South Australia, about 700 kilometers north of Adelaide. When it's completely full, Lake Eyre covers about 9,500 square kilometers, but it only fills up completely a few times per century. When does it fill up? Well, it depends on rainfall in the catchment area. The catchment area for Lake Eyre includes parts of Queensland, New South Wales, South Australia, and the Northern Territory. When there's heavy rainfall in these areas, water flows down through river systems like Cooper Creek and the Diamantina River into Lake Eyre. Even when it's not completely full, Lake Eyre sometimes has water in parts of it. The lake is made up of two sections, Lake Eyre North and Lake Eyre South. Lake Eyre North is bigger and fills up more often. When Lake Eyre fills up, it becomes a temporary haven for water birds. Pelicans, flamingos, and other birds come from all over Australia to breed at the lake. When the water evaporates, the lake becomes a salt flat again. Lake Eyre sits at the lowest point in Australia. It's about 15 meters below sea level. The lake is named after Edward John Eyre, who was the first European to see it in 1840. The lake is part of a larger system of salt lakes in central Australia. Other salt lakes in the area include Lake Torrens, Lake Gardner, and Lake Frome. These lakes all behave similarly to Lake Eyre. They fill up occasionally when there's enough rainfall, but most of the time they're dry salt flats. Now let's look at artesian water sources. The Great Artesian Basin is one of the largest groundwater sources in the world. It covers about 1.7 million square kilometers. That's about 22% of Australia's land area. The basin underlies parts of Queensland, New South Wales, South Australia, and the Northern Territory. What is artesian water? Well, it's groundwater that's under pressure. The water is trapped between layers of rock underground. When you drill down to it, the pressure can push the water up to the surface. Sometimes the pressure is so strong that water shoots out of the ground like a fountain. That's called a flowing artesian bore. Not all artesian bores flow naturally, though. Some need pumps to bring the water to the surface. The Great Artesian Basin has been a water source for people living in outback Australia. Many towns and cattle stations rely on bore water. The water in the Great Artesian Basin is quite old. Some of it has been underground for over 1 million years. The water quality varies depending on where you are. In some areas, the water is quite salty. In others, it's fresh enough to drink. Over the years, too much water has been extracted in some areas. That's caused the pressure to drop, and some bores have stopped flowing. There are now efforts to cap unused bores and improve water management. The Great Artesian Basin was formed over millions of years. Water entered the basin in areas where the rock layers reached the surface, mainly along the eastern edge of the basin. This water then moved slowly underground toward the center of the basin. The journey can take thousands of years. The basin has different layers, or aquifers. The main aquifers are the Cadna-Owie Formation and the Hooray Sandstone. So what about seasonal and ephemeral rivers? These are rivers that don't flow all year round. They only flow during certain seasons or after heavy rainfall. Cooper Creek is a good example of this. Cooper Creek flows through Queensland and South Australia. It usually only flows after heavy rainfall in its catchment area. When it does flow, Cooper Creek can become quite a substantial river. But during dry periods, it can be just a series of disconnected waterholes. The Diamantina River is another example. It flows through Queensland and South Australia, but only seasonally. When it flows, the Diamantina can flood large areas of the outback. But most of the time, it's just a dry riverbed. Why do these rivers behave this way? Well, it's because of Australia's climate. Much of inland Australia has very irregular rainfall. Some years might be quite wet, others might be very dry. So the rivers respond to this by flowing when there's water available and drying up when there isn't. These seasonal rivers bring life to otherwise dry areas. Plants and animals depend on these occasional flows. The rivers also help recharge groundwater systems. When they flow over the landscape, some of the water soaks into the ground and replenishes underground aquifers. The Finca River in Central Australia is claimed to be one of the world's oldest rivers. It's also ephemeral, only flowing after heavy rains. When it does flow, it can cause flooding in the town of Alice Springs. The Gascoyne River in Western Australia is another major ephemeral river. It flows through the town of Carnarvon, but only after significant rainfall in its catchment. The Todd River in Alice Springs is famous for the Henley on Todd Regatta, a boat race held on the dry riverbed. The river only flows a few times each decade. Now let's talk about wetland systems and billabongs. Wetlands are areas where water covers the land, either permanently or seasonally. Australia has many different types of wetlands. Some are coastal, like mangrove swamps. Others are inland, like freshwater marshes. Billabongs are a special type of wetland found in Australia. A billabong is basically an oxbow lake. It forms when a river changes course and leaves behind a curved section of water. Billabongs are often found along the Murray River and other major rivers. The Macquarie Marshes in New South Wales are one of Australia's inland wetland systems. These marshes cover about 200,000 hectares when they're full. They depend on water from the Macquarie River. The marshes are home to many water birds, including ibises, herons, and ducks. Kakadu National Park in the Northern Territory also has extensive wetland systems. These wetlands flood during the wet season and dry out during the dry season. This cycle has been going on for thousands of years. Wetlands provide habitat for many species of plants and animals. They also help filter water and reduce flooding. Many of Australia's wetlands are under threat. Water diversions for agriculture and urban development have reduced water flows to many wetland areas. The Coorong in South Australia is another wetland system. It's a long, narrow lagoon that runs parallel to the coast. The Coorong depends on water from the Murray River, but reduced river flows have caused problems for the Coorong's ecosystem. The water has become too salty, affecting the plants and animals that live there. Billabongs are culturally significant in Australia. They feature in Aboriginal stories and in Australian literature and music. The song Waltzing Matilda mentions a billabong. Many billabongs have been affected by river regulation and water extraction. So, what about underground water systems? Australia has extensive underground water systems, also called aquifers. An aquifer is basically an underground layer of rock or soil that can hold water. Australia has both shallow and deep aquifers. The shallow aquifers are usually recharged by local rainfall. The deep aquifers, like the Great Artesian Basin, were filled with water thousands or millions of years ago. The water table is the level at which you hit water when you dig down into the ground. In some areas of Australia, the water table is quite high, you might hit water after digging just a few meters. In other areas, especially in the arid inland, the water table might be hundreds of meters below the surface. Underground water is used a lot in Australia because so much of the continent is dry. Many towns and farms rely entirely on underground water. Perth, Australia's fourth largest city, gets much of its water from underground aquifers. Underground water systems can be fragile. If you take out water faster than it's replaced, the water table drops. In some areas of Australia, this has already happened. The water table has dropped so much that some wells have run dry. There are also problems with water quality. In some areas, underground water is naturally salty. In others, pollution from agriculture or industry has contaminated the aquifers. Besides the Great Artesian Basin, Australia has many other aquifer systems. The Perth Basin in Western Australia is a source of water for Perth and surrounding areas. The Murray Basin aquifer system underlies parts of Victoria, New South Wales, and South Australia. These aquifers are recharged by rainfall and river flows. The rate of recharge varies depending on the geology and climate. Now, let's look at river deltas and floodplains. A delta is where a river meets the sea or a lake. It's usually a flat area where the river deposits sediment. The Murray River has a delta where it meets the ocean in South Australia. But the Murray Delta is quite different from deltas in other parts of the world. It's much smaller and less defined. That's because the Murray River doesn't carry as much sediment as rivers in other countries. Floodplains are flat areas next to rivers that get flooded when the river overflows its banks. Australia has extensive floodplains along its major rivers. The Murray River floodplains can extend for many kilometers on either side of the river. When the river floods, these areas become temporarily underwater. Floodplains are used for both the environment and agriculture. The floods bring nutrients to the soil, making it very fertile. Many of Australia's agricultural areas are on floodplains, but floods can also cause problems. They can damage crops, houses, and infrastructure. Climate change is making flooding more unpredictable. Some years there might be severe floods, other years there might be no floods at all. Managing floodplains is a challenge. You want to allow natural flooding for environmental and agricultural benefits, but you also need to protect people and property from flood damage. The Murray River Delta, also called Murray Mouth, has had problems in recent years. During droughts, not enough water flows down the river to keep the mouth open. Sand builds up and blocks the river entrance to the sea. This affects the whole ecosystem of the lower river and the Coorong. Dredging is sometimes needed to keep the mouth open. The Fitzroy River in Western Australia has one of the few undeveloped river deltas in Australia. So what about water storage systems? Australia has built many dams and reservoirs to store water. The biggest is Lake Gordon in Tasmania, which holds about 12.5 million megalitres of water. On the mainland, Lake Eildon in Victoria is one of the largest, holding about 3.3 million megalitres. These large storages capture water during wet periods and store it for use during dry periods. The Snowy Mountains Scheme is one of Australia's water projects. It diverts water from rivers that would normally flow east to the coast and redirects it inland to the Murray and Murrumbidgee rivers. The scheme includes many dams, tunnels, and power stations. Many Australian cities also depend on large water storages. Sydney gets its water from several large dams in the surrounding area. Melbourne has a system of reservoirs in the mountains east of the city. Water storage systems can have environmental impacts. Dams can disrupt river ecosystems and fish migration patterns. They can also change the natural flow patterns of rivers. That can affect wetlands and floodplains downstream. There's often a balance to be struck between water security and environmental protection. Some older dams are now being modified to allow more natural water flows while still providing water storage. Lake Jindabyne is part of the Snowy Mountains Scheme. It was created by damming the Snowy River. The town of Jindabyne was relocated to make way for the lake. Lake Hume on the Murray River is another major storage. It was one of the first large dams built in Australia. The lake can hold about 3 million megalitres of water. Warragamba Dam supplies most of Sydney's water. It's built in a gorge west of Sydney and creates a large lake behind it. The dam was completed in 1960. Tasmania has some of the largest water storages in Australia relative to its size. Moving on to spring-fed water sources. Springs occur where underground water naturally comes to the surface. Australia has many different types of springs. Some are fed by shallow groundwater, others by deep artesian water. The springs in the Great Artesian Basin are found across the outback. Many of these springs have been flowing for thousands of years. They create small oases in otherwise dry landscapes. These springs provide permanent water sources in areas where surface water is rare. Many species of plants and animals have evolved specifically around these springs. Some species are found nowhere else in the world. Aboriginal people have also used these springs for thousands of years. Many springs have cultural significance. Many of Australia's springs are under threat. Water extraction from underground sources has reduced the pressure in some aquifers. That's caused some springs to stop flowing or to flow less than they used to. There are now efforts to protect springs and manage groundwater extraction more carefully. Some springs are also threatened by introduced plants and animals. Feral pigs, for example, can damage spring areas by trampling vegetation and muddying the water. Dalhousie Springs in South Australia is one of the largest spring complexes in Australia. It's fed by water from the Great Artesian Basin. The springs support unique plants and animals, including a species of fish found nowhere else. The springs are also culturally significant to local Aboriginal people. Palm Valley in the Northern Territory has springs that support a population of palm trees. These palms are survivors from a time when the climate was much wetter. The springs provide the water they need to survive in the current arid environment. Kings Canyon in the Northern Territory also has spring-fed pools. So, let's take a look at Australia's climate zone distributions. Australia has several different climate zones. The northern part has a tropical climate. The southern parts have temperate climates. The interior is mostly arid. Australia sits between about 10 degrees south and 44 degrees south latitude. The northern parts are closer to the equator. The southern parts are further from the equator. Australia sits between the Indian and Pacific Oceans. The oceans influence the climate, especially near the coasts. You can divide Australia into about 6 main climate zones. There's the tropical zone in the north. There's the arid zone in the center. There are temperate zones in the south. There are also some Mediterranean climate areas. Each zone has different weather patterns throughout the year. The tropical zone has wet and dry seasons. The temperate zones have 4 seasons. The arid zones don't have much rainfall any time of year. Most of Australia's population lives in the temperate zones along the coast. The tropical and arid zones have much smaller populations. Sydney is in a temperate zone. Melbourne is in a temperate zone. Brisbane is on the border between tropical and temperate zones. Perth is in a Mediterranean climate zone. Darwin is in a tropical zone. Alice Springs is in an arid zone. Adelaide is in a Mediterranean climate zone. The climate zones affect what plants grow in different areas. They also affect where people choose to live. Agriculture is different in each climate zone. Now let's talk about the tropical north characteristics. The tropical north includes northern Queensland, the Northern Territory, and northern Western Australia. This area has a tropical climate with 2 main seasons. There's the wet season and the dry season. The wet season runs from about November to April. During the wet season, temperatures are hot and humid. Daily temperatures often reach 30 to 35 degrees Celsius. The humidity is quite high. This is when most of the rainfall occurs. Some areas get over 1,500 millimeters of rain during the wet season. The dry season runs from about May to October. During the dry season, temperatures are still warm, but the humidity is lower. Daily temperatures are usually around 25 to 30 degrees Celsius. There's very little rainfall during the dry season. Some places might not get any rain for months. The tropical north also gets cyclones during the wet season. Cyclones usually occur between November and April. Not every year has cyclones. The tropical north has tropical rainforests, savanna grasslands, and wetlands. Many areas flood during the wet season and dry out during the dry season. Darwin is the largest city in the tropical north. It has a population of about 150,000. Cairns is another major city in the tropical north. Cairns has about 160,000 people. Townsville is also in the tropical north. It has about 180,000 people. Broome is in the tropical north of Western Australia. Katherine is in the tropical north of the Northern Territory. So what about the temperate southern regions? The temperate regions include most of Victoria, Tasmania, southern South Australia, southern Western Australia, and southern New South Wales. These areas have 4 distinct seasons. Summer runs from December to February. During summer, temperatures can get quite warm. In inland areas, summer temperatures can reach 35 to 40 degrees Celsius. Near the coast, temperatures are usually around 20 to 30 degrees Celsius. Winter runs from June to August. Winter temperatures are much cooler. In inland areas, winter temperatures can drop to around 5 to 15 degrees Celsius during the day. Near the coast, winter temperatures are usually around 10 to 20 degrees Celsius. Some higher areas get snow during winter. Spring runs from September to November. Autumn runs from March to May. During spring and autumn, temperatures are usually mild. Rainfall in temperate regions varies. Coastal areas usually get more rainfall than inland areas. Most areas get some rainfall throughout the year. Winter is often the wettest season. Many of Australia's major cities are in temperate regions. Melbourne has a population of about 5 million. Adelaide has about 1.4 million. Perth has about 2.2 million. Hobart has about 240,000. Canberra is also in a temperate region. It has about 460,000 people. These cities have gardens, parks, and tree-lined streets. The temperate regions have forests, woodlands, and grasslands. Now let's look at the arid interior patterns. The arid interior covers about 70% of Australia. This area has very low rainfall and high temperatures. It's dry because it's far from the oceans. The interior sits under high-pressure systems for much of the year. Temperatures in the arid interior can be extreme. During summer, daytime temperatures often exceed 40 degrees Celsius. Some areas regularly reach 45 to 50 degrees Celsius. Desert areas can cool down quickly at night. Winter nights in the interior can drop to near freezing. The days might still be quite warm, though. Rainfall in the arid interior is very low. Most areas get less than 250 millimeters of rain per year. Some areas get less than 150 millimeters. The rain doesn't come steadily. It might not rain for months, then there might be a heavy downpour. The vegetation is adapted to dry conditions. There are shrublands, grasslands, and areas of bare soil. Many plants have small leaves to reduce water loss. Alice Springs is the largest town in the arid interior. It has a population of about 25,000. Broken Hill is another town in the arid interior. Coober Pedy is a town in the arid interior known for opal mining. Kalgoorlie is in the arid interior of Western Australia. Mount Isa is in the arid interior of Queensland. These towns often rely on bore water or water brought in from other areas. Mining is one of the main industries. Cattle and sheep grazing also occurs. Tourism is another industry, with people visiting Uluru, Kings Canyon, and other attractions. So, what about Mediterranean climate zones? Australia has two main Mediterranean climate zones. One is in southwestern Western Australia, around Perth. The other is in southeastern Australia, around Adelaide and parts of Victoria. Mediterranean climates have warm, dry summers and mild, wet winters. In Mediterranean climate areas, summer temperatures are usually around 25 to 35 degrees Celsius. The humidity is low and there's very little rainfall during summer. Some areas might not get any rain for several months during summer. Winter temperatures are mild, usually around 10 to 20 degrees Celsius. This is when most of the rainfall occurs. These areas might get 400 to 800 millimeters of rain per year. Most falls between May and September. These areas are influenced by high-pressure systems during summer and low-pressure systems during winter. During summer, high pressure brings clear, dry weather. During winter, low pressure brings rain from the Southern Ocean. The Mediterranean climate zones have forests, woodlands, and shrublands. Many plants are adapted to the dry summers. Some of Australia's wine-growing regions are in Mediterranean climate areas. The Barossa Valley is in a Mediterranean climate zone. The Hunter Valley is also in this type of climate. Margaret River region is in Western Australia's Mediterranean zone. Perth is the largest city in a Mediterranean climate zone. It has about 2.2 million people. Adelaide is another major city in this climate zone. It has about 1.4 million people. Now, let's talk about monsoon and cyclone patterns. The northern parts of Australia are influenced by monsoons and cyclones. A monsoon is a seasonal change in wind direction. During Australian summer, warm air rises over the heated continent. This draws in moist air from the oceans to the north. This brings the wet season to northern Australia. During Australian winter, cool air sinks over the continent. This pushes dry air toward the north, bringing the dry season. Cyclones are intense low-pressure systems that form over warm ocean water. In Australia, cyclones mainly affect the northern and eastern coasts. The cyclone season runs from about November to April. Not every year has cyclones. Cyclones bring very strong winds, heavy rain, and storm surges. Wind speeds in cyclones can exceed 200 kilometers per hour. Cyclones are classified into categories based on their wind speed. Category 1 cyclones have winds of 90 to 125 kilometers per hour. Category 5 cyclones have winds over 280 kilometers per hour. When cyclones make landfall, they can cause damage to buildings and infrastructure. They can also cause flooding and storm surges. Cyclone Tracy destroyed most of Darwin in 1974. Cyclone Yasi caused major damage in Queensland in 2011. Cyclone Larry hit Queensland in 2006. Cyclone Debbie hit Queensland in 2017. Cyclone names are chosen in advance and used in alphabetical order. The names alternate between male and female names. When a cyclone causes significant damage, its name is retired. So, what about drought cycles and El Niño? Australia experiences regular drought cycles. These droughts can last for several years. One major factor is a climate pattern called El Niño. El Niño is part of the El Niño Southern Oscillation, or ENSO. During El Niño years, ocean temperatures in the Pacific change. This affects rainfall patterns across Australia. El Niño usually brings drier conditions to eastern and northern Australia. La Niña is the opposite of El Niño. During La Niña years, eastern and northern Australia usually get more rainfall. The ENSO cycle doesn't follow a regular pattern. El Niño and La Niña events can last from a few months to a couple of years. Some events are stronger than others. Australia has experienced some major droughts linked to El Niño. The Federation drought was from 1,895 to 1,903. The Millennium drought was from 1,997 to 2009. This affected large parts of southeastern Australia. During droughts, crop yields fall. Livestock need additional feed. Water restrictions are often introduced in cities. Droughts also increase the risk of bushfires. El Niña and La Niña also affect temperature patterns, storm activity, and ocean currents around Australia. The Bureau of Meteorology monitors ENSO conditions. They issue regular updates. Farmers and water managers use this information to make decisions. The Indian Ocean Dipole is another climate pattern that affects Australia's rainfall. When it's positive, it usually brings drier conditions to southern and eastern Australia. When it's negative, it usually brings wetter conditions. Now let's look at temperature extremes. Australia experiences some extreme temperatures. The highest temperature ever recorded in Australia was 50.7 degrees Celsius. This was recorded at Oodnadatta in South Australia in 1960. Many places in Australia regularly experience temperatures over 45 degrees Celsius during summer. The interior regions tend to have the highest temperatures. Alice Springs often reaches 45 to 50 degrees Celsius during summer. Tennant Creek also gets very hot, but even coastal cities can experience extreme heat. Adelaide has recorded temperatures over 46 degrees Celsius. Melbourne has recorded over 46 degrees Celsius. Perth has recorded over 46 degrees Celsius. The lowest temperature ever recorded in Australia was negative 23 degrees Celsius. This was recorded at Charlotte Pass in New South Wales in 1994. Snow falls in several parts of Australia during winter. The Australian Alps get snow every year. Some areas of Tasmania also get regular snowfall. Mount Kosciuszko gets snow. Mount Buller gets snow. Falls Creek gets snow. Perisher gets snow. Some higher areas in other states can get occasional snow. The temperature range in Australia can be quite large. Some inland areas might have a daily temperature range of 20 to 30 degrees Celsius. It might be 40 degrees during the day and 15 degrees at night. Coastal areas usually have smaller daily temperature ranges. The ocean moderates the temperatures. Heat waves are a regular occurrence in Australia. A heat wave is 3 or more days in a row with temperatures above a certain threshold. The thresholds vary depending on the location. Heat waves can be dangerous, especially for elderly people and young children. So, what about rainfall distribution? Rainfall across Australia is very uneven. Some areas get over 3,000 millimeters of rain per year. Other areas get less than 200 millimeters. The northern and eastern coasts generally get the most rainfall. The Queensland coast can get 1,000 to 3,000 millimeters per year. Northern New South Wales gets quite a bit of rainfall. Parts of the Northern Territory get good rainfall. The interior gets much less rainfall. Most of Central Australia gets less than 250 millimeters per year. Some areas get less than 150 millimeters. The southern coasts get moderate rainfall. Melbourne gets around 650 millimeters per year. Adelaide gets around 530 millimeters per year. Perth gets around 730 millimeters per year. Tasmania gets quite a bit of rainfall, especially on the western side. Some parts of western Tasmania get over 2,000 millimeters per year. Hobart gets about 620 millimeters per year. The rainfall also varies seasonally. Northern Australia gets most of its rain during the wet season from November to April. Southern Australia gets most of its rain during winter from May to September. The eastern coast can get rain throughout the year. It often gets more during summer due to thunderstorms and occasional cyclones. Rainfall in Australia is quite variable from year to year. Some years might get twice the average rainfall. Other years might get half the average. This variability makes water management challenging. Australia is the second driest continent after Antarctica. About 80% of Australia gets less than 600 millimeters of rain per year. Only about 3% of Australia gets more than 1,500 millimeters per year. Now, let's talk about seasonal weather variations. Australia's seasons are opposite to the Northern Hemisphere. Summer is from December to February. Autumn is from March to May. Winter is from June to August. Spring is from September to November. The seasonal variations are different in different parts of Australia. In the tropical north, there are really only two seasons. There's the wet season and the dry season. The wet season runs from about November to April. This is when it's hot, humid, and rainy. The dry season runs from about May to October. This is when it's warm but dry. In the temperate south, there are 4 distinct seasons. Summer is hot and often dry. Winter is cool and often wet. Spring and autumn are mild with variable weather. In the arid interior, the seasons are marked more by temperature than by rainfall. Summer is very hot during the day but can be cool at night. Winter is mild during the day but can be cold at night. There's very little rainfall in any season. The Mediterranean climate areas have a different seasonal pattern. Summer is hot and dry. Winter is mild and wet. Spring and autumn are mild with some rainfall. Seasonal variations affect bushfire risk, agricultural activities, and tourism patterns. The bushfire season is usually during the hot, dry months. Agricultural planting and harvesting times depend on the seasonal rainfall patterns. Tourism patterns also follow the seasons. Many people visit tropical areas during the dry season. Ski fields in the Australian Alps operate during winter. Beach destinations are most popular during summer. Christmas in Australia is during summer. So many people go to the beach for Christmas. So let's take a look at New South Wales' geographical features. New South Wales is located on the eastern coast of Australia. It's Australia's most populous state with about 8.2 million people. The state covers about 801,000 square kilometers. Sydney is the capital and largest city with about 5.3 million people. The Great Dividing Range runs through the eastern part of the state. This includes the Blue Mountains west of Sydney. The Blue Mountains are about 1,000 meters above sea level. The coast of New South Wales stretches for about 2,100 kilometers. There are many beaches along this coast. The Hunter Valley is north of Sydney. This area is known for coal mining and wine production. The Snowy Mountains are in the south of the state. This is where you'll find Mount Kosciuszko, Australia's highest peak. West of the Great Dividing Range are the Western Plains. This area is flatter and drier than the coast. Major rivers in New South Wales include the Murray River, which forms the border with Victoria. The Murrumbidgee River flows through the state. The Darling River also flows through the western part of the state. The climate varies across New South Wales. The coast has a temperate climate. The inland areas have a more continental climate with hotter summers and cooler winters. Newcastle is the second largest city in the state, with about 430,000 people. Wollongong is the third largest city, with about 300,000 people. Now let's talk about Victoria's diverse landscapes. Victoria is the smallest mainland state, covering about 227,000 square kilometers. It has a population of about 6.7 million people. Melbourne is the capital and largest city, with about 5.2 million people. Victoria has quite diverse geography for its size. The Great Dividing Range runs through the eastern part of the state. This includes the Australian Alps in the northeast. Mount Bogong is Victoria's highest peak at 1,986 meters. The western part of Victoria is flatter with volcanic plains. The Grampians mountain range is in the western part of the state. Victoria has about 2,000 kilometers of coastline. This includes the famous Great Ocean Road along the southern coast. The 12 Apostles rock formations are along this coast. Bass Strait separates Victoria from Tasmania. The Murray River forms the northern border with New South Wales. Other major rivers include the Goulburn River and the Yarra River. The Yarra River flows through Melbourne. Victoria has a temperate climate with 4 distinct seasons. The northern parts are warmer and drier. The southern parts are cooler and wetter. Geelong is the second largest city in Victoria with about 280,000 people. Ballarat and Bendigo are also significant cities. These were major gold mining centers in the 1800s. The Mallee region in the northwest is quite dry and has scrubland vegetation. Gippsland in the east has forests and dairy farming areas. So, what about Queensland's tropical geography? Queensland is Australia's second largest state, covering about 1.73 million square kilometers. It has a population of about 5.2 million people. Brisbane is the capital and largest city, with about 2.6 million people. Queensland stretches from the tropical north to the temperate south. The northern parts have a tropical climate with wet and dry seasons. The southern parts have a subtropical climate. The Great Dividing Range runs along the eastern part of the state. The Great Barrier Reef lies off the Queensland coast. It's the world's largest coral reef system. The reef stretches for about 2,300 kilometers. Cape York Peninsula is the northernmost part of mainland Australia. It's quite remote and has a small population. The Gulf of Carpentaria is on the western side of Cape York. Tropical rainforests are found along parts of the coast. The Daintree Rainforest is one of the oldest rainforests in the world. West of the Great Dividing Range are vast plains and desert areas. This includes parts of the Great Western Plateau. Major rivers include the Brisbane River, which flows through Brisbane. The Fitzroy River flows through central Queensland. Gold Coast is a major tourist city south of Brisbane with about 680,000 people. Cairns is a major city in the tropical north with about 160,000 people. Townsville is another major city in the north with about 180,000 people. The Sunshine Coast is north of Brisbane. Mount Isa is a mining town in the northwest of the state. Now, let's look at Western Australia's vast expanses. Western Australia is by far the largest state, covering about 2.53 million square kilometers. That's about 1/3 of Australia's total land area. It has a population of about 2.8 million people. Perth is the capital and largest city, with about 2.2 million people. Most of Western Australia is part of the Great Western Plateau. This is an ancient, flat area with very old rocks. The Pilbara region in the north is known for iron ore mining. The Kimberley region in the far north has rugged landscapes and gorges. The southwest corner has a Mediterranean climate. This is where most of the population lives. The Nullarbor Plain stretches across the southern part of the state into South Australia. The Great Victoria Desert covers much of the interior. The Gibson Desert and Great Sandy Desert are also in Western Australia. The coast of Western Australia stretches for about 12,500 kilometers. That's longer than any other state. The Ningaloo Reef is off the northwest coast. Shark Bay is a World Heritage Site on the west coast. Major rivers include the Swan River, which flows through Perth. Most rivers in Western Australia are seasonal and only flow after heavy rainfall. Fremantle is Perth's port city. Kalgoorlie is a major gold mining town in the interior. Broome is a town in the northwest known for pearling. The Ord River is in the far northeast of the state. Albany is a city on the southern coast. So, what about South Australia's arid regions? South Australia covers about 984,000 square kilometers. It has a population of about 1.8 million people. Adelaide is the capital and largest city with about 1.4 million people. Much of South Australia is arid or semi-arid. The state doesn't have any permanent rivers that reach the sea. The Murray River flows along the eastern border with Victoria. Lake Eyre is in the northern part of the state. It's usually a dry salt lake, but occasionally fills with water. The Nullarbor Plain covers the western part of the state. The Flinders Ranges are in the central part of the state. These are ancient mountains that have been worn down over time. The Barossa Valley is northeast of Adelaide. This area is famous for wine production. The Adelaide Hills are east of Adelaide. Kangaroo Island is off the coast south of Adelaide. The island covers about 4,400 square kilometers. The Great Australian Bight forms the southern coastline. This area has dramatic limestone cliffs. The Eyre Peninsula is in the west of the state. Port Lincoln is at the southern tip of this peninsula. The Yorke Peninsula is west of Adelaide. Spencer Gulf and Gulf St. Vincent are large bays. The Coorong is a long lagoon system in the southeast. Most of South Australia has a Mediterranean or arid climate. The coastal areas get more rainfall than the interior. Mount Gambier is in the southeast, near the Victorian border. This area has volcanic lakes. Now let's talk about Tasmania's island geography. Tasmania is an island state located about 240 kilometers south of Victoria. Bass Strait separates Tasmania from the mainland. Tasmania covers about 68,400 square kilometers. It has a population of about 575,000 people. Hobart is the capital and largest city with about 240,000 people. Tasmania has a mountainous interior with coastal plains. The Central Highlands are part of the Great Dividing Range system. Mount Ossa is Tasmania's highest peak at 1,617 meters. The western part of Tasmania is quite rugged with temperate rainforests. The eastern part is drier with rolling hills and farmland. Tasmania has about 5,000 kilometers of coastline. There are many small islands around the main island. King Island and Flinders Island are the largest of these. King Island is in Bass Strait between Tasmania and Victoria. Flinders Island is northeast of the main island. The Tasman Peninsula is in the southeast. This area has dramatic coastal cliffs. Cradle Mountain Lake St. Clair National Park is in the Central Highlands. The Gordon River is in the southwest wilderness area. Lake Petter and Lake Gordon are large reservoirs in the southwest. Launceston is the second largest city with about 110,000 people. It's located in the north of the island. Devonport is another significant city with about 30,000 people. Tasmania has a temperate oceanic climate. It's cooler than mainland Australia. The west coast gets much more rainfall than the east coast. So, what about the Northern Territory's tropical zones? The Northern Territory covers about 1.35 million square kilometers. It has a population of about 250,000 people. Darwin is the capital and largest city with about 150,000 people. The Northern Territory has two main regions. The top end in the north has a tropical climate. The red center in the south has an arid climate. The top end has wet and dry seasons. The wet season is from November to April. The dry season is from May to October. Kakadu National Park is in the top end. This area has wetlands, escarpments, and aboriginal rock art. Arnhem Land is in the northeast. This is aboriginal land with restricted access. The Tiwi Islands are north of Darwin. Alice Springs is the main town in the red center with about 25,000 people. Uluru is in the red center. This is a large monolith that's sacred to Aboriginal people. Kata Tajuta is near Uluru. These are large dome-shaped rocks. The MacDonnell Ranges are near Alice Springs. Kings Canyon is in Watarka National Park. The Simpson Desert covers parts of the southeast. The Tanami Desert is in the central west area. Catherine is a town south of Darwin with about 10,000 people. Catherine Gorge is a popular tourist attraction. Tennant Creek is a town on the Stewart Highway. The territory doesn't have any permanent rivers that flow year-round. Todd River flows through Alice Springs, but is usually dry. Now, let's look at Australian Capital Territory features. The Australian Capital Territory is quite small, covering only about 2,400 square kilometers. It has a population of about 460,000 people. Canberra is the capital of Australia and the only major city in the territory. The territory was created specifically to house the national capital. It's located between Sydney and Melbourne. The territory is completely surrounded by New South Wales. The Brindabella Ranges are in the west of the territory. Mount Franklin is the highest peak at 1,646 meters. The Murrumbidgee River flows through the southern part of the territory. Lake Burley Griffin is an artificial lake in the center of Canberra. The Molonglo River was dammed to create this lake. The territory has a highland subtropical climate. Summers are warm and winters are cool. Some higher areas can get snow during winter. The territory includes Namadgi National Park in the south. This park includes alpine areas and bushland. Tidbinbilla Nature Reserve is southwest of Canberra. The territory was established in 1911. Canberra was planned as a garden city with lots of parks and open spaces. The city was designed by American architect Walter Burley Griffin. Parliamentary Triangle contains many of Australia's national institutions. This includes Parliament House, which was completed in 1988. The territory gained self-government in 1988. Before that, it was administered by the federal government. Jervis Bay Territory on the coast is also administered by the ACT government. So what about state boundary characteristics? Australia's state boundaries were drawn by British colonial administrators in the 1800s and early 1900s. Most boundaries follow lines of latitude and longitude rather than natural features. The boundary between Western Australia and South Australia follows the 129th meridian east. The boundary between South Australia and the Northern Territory follows the 138th meridian east. The boundary between New South Wales and Queensland follows the 28th parallel south. Some boundaries do follow natural features. The Murray River forms most of the boundary between New South Wales and Victoria. The boundary continues along the watershed of the Great Dividing Range, where there's no river. Bass Strait forms the boundary between Victoria and Tasmania. Some boundaries were changed over time. The Northern Territory was originally part of South Australia. It was transferred to federal control in 1911. The Australian Capital Territory was carved out of New South Wales in 1911. Jervis Bay Territory was also transferred from New South Wales to federal control. The boundaries sometimes create practical problems. Towns can be split by state boundaries. Albury-Wodonga straddles the New South Wales-Victoria border. The twin towns of Tweed Heads and Coolangatta straddle the New South Wales-Queensland border. Different states have different laws and regulations. This can affect things like daylight saving time, which not all states observe. The boundaries also affect federal politics because Senate representation is based on states. Finally, let's talk about regional geographical divisions. Australia can be divided into regions based on geography rather than political boundaries. The Great Western Plateau covers most of Western Australia and parts of South Australia and the Northern Territory. This is an ancient, stable, geological region. The Great Dividing Range runs along the eastern coast through Queensland, New South Wales, and Victoria. It continues into Tasmania. The central lowlands lie between the plateau and the ranges. This area includes the Murray-Darling Basin. These geographical regions often cross state boundaries. The Australian Alps extend across New South Wales, Victoria, and the ACT. The Great Barrier Reef region extends along the Queensland coast. The top end refers to the northern part of the Northern Territory and northern Western Australia. The red center refers to the arid heart of Australia around Alice Springs. The Nullarbor Plain crosses Western Australia and South Australia. The Mallee region crosses Victoria, South Australia, and New South Wales. This is a scrubland area with distinctive vegetation. The wheat belt refers to agricultural areas in several states. The Pilbara refers to the iron ore mining region in Western Australia. The Kimberley refers to the rugged northwestern region of Western Australia. These regional divisions are based on climate, geology, vegetation, or economic activity. They're often more meaningful than state boundaries for understanding Australia's geography. The regions reflect the natural environment rather than political decisions made in the 1800s. If you're enjoying the video so far, subscribe to our channel. So let's take a look at major city geographical settings. Australia's major cities are all located near the coast. Sydney is built around a natural harbour called Port Jackson. The city is located on the eastern coast of New South Wales. Sydney covers about 12,000 square kilometres. The harbour has many bays and inlets. The city centre is built on sandstone. Melbourne is located at the head of Port Phillip Bay in Victoria. Melbourne covers about 10,000 square kilometres. The city is built on flat plains. The Yarra River flows through the city centre. Brisbane is located on the Brisbane River, about 23 kilometres from the coast. Brisbane covers about 15,000 square kilometres. The city has hills and plains. Perth is located on the Swan River, about 19 kilometres from the coast. Perth covers about 6,400 square kilometres. The city is built on a coastal plain. Adelaide is located between the Adelaide Hills and Gulf St. Vincent. Adelaide covers about 2,000 square kilometres. The city has a grid layout. Darwin is located on a natural harbour on the northern coast. Darwin covers about 3,200 square kilometres. Hobart is located at the mouth of the Derwent River in Tasmania. Hobart covers about 1,400 square kilometres. Mount Wellington overlooks the city. Canberra is the only major city not located on the coast. It's located inland in the Australian Capital Territory. Canberra covers about 800 square kilometres. Most of these cities were established as ports during European settlement. The coastal locations provided access to shipping. The natural harbours protected ships. Many cities were built near rivers for fresh water. Sydney has a population of about 5.3 million people. Melbourne has about 5.2 million. Brisbane has about 2.6 million. Perth has about 2.2 million. Adelaide has about 1.4 million. Darwin has about 150,000. Hobart has about 240,000. Canberra has about 460,000. Now let's talk about population distribution patterns. About 86% of Australians live in urban areas. Most people live within 50 kilometres of the coast. The eastern seaboard has the highest population density. This includes the cities from Brisbane to Melbourne. About 75% of Australians live in the southeastern quarter of the continent. The interior has very low population density. Some areas have less than one person per 100 square kilometres. The Northern Territory has the lowest population density with about 0.2 people per square kilometre. The Australian Capital Territory has the highest population density with about 190 people per square kilometre. New South Wales has about 10 people per square kilometre. Victoria has about 30 people per square kilometre. Queensland has about 3 people per square kilometre. Western Australia has about 1 person per square kilometre. South Australia has about 2 people per square kilometre. Tasmania has about 8 people per square kilometre. The population is heavily concentrated in capital cities. About 67% of Australians live in capital cities. Regional cities have much smaller populations. Newcastle has about 430,000 people. Gold Coast has about 680,000. Wollongong has about 300,000. Geelong has about 280,000. Sunshine Coast has about 330,000. Central Coast has about 340,000. Most inland towns have populations under 50,000. Many remote areas have populations under 1,000. Alice Springs has about 25,000 people. Mount Isa has about 18,000. Broken Hill has about 17,000. Kalgoorlie has about 31,000. Dubbo has about 43,000. Tamworth has about 42,000. Ballarat has about 110,000. Bendigo has about 120,000. Toowoomba has about 140,000. These are the largest inland cities. Most other inland towns are much smaller. So what about coastal versus inland settlements? Most Australian settlements are located on or near the coast. Coastal settlements have several advantages. They have access to shipping and trade. The climate is usually milder near the coast. There are better job opportunities in coastal cities. Coastal areas also have better infrastructure like roads, airports, and telecommunications. The coast has more hospitals and schools. Water supply is often more reliable near the coast. Inland settlements face more challenges. The climate is often harsher with extreme temperatures. There are fewer job opportunities outside of mining and agriculture. Infrastructure is more limited. Medical services are often far away. Internet and mobile coverage can be poor. Fresh food costs more due to transport. Many inland settlements were established for specific purposes like mining or agriculture. When these industries decline, the towns often shrink. Some major inland settlements include Canberra with 460,000 people. Alice Springs has about 25,000 people. Mount Isa has about 18,000 people. Broken Hill has about 17,000 people. Kalgoorlie has about 31,000 people. Dubbo has about 43,000 people. Orange has about 41,000 people. Bathurst has about 37,000 people. Armidale has about 25,000 people. These towns serve as regional centers for surrounding areas. They provide services like hospitals, schools, and government offices. The distance between inland settlements can be very large. It might be hundreds of kilometers to the nearest town. Many young people leave inland towns to find work in coastal cities. This leads to aging populations in many inland areas. Now let's look at mining town locations. Many Australian towns were established because of mining. Gold mining created many towns in the 1800s. Some of these towns are still thriving today. Others became ghost towns when the gold ran out. Kalgoorlie in Western Australia is still a major gold mining center. It has about 31,000 people. Ballarat and Bendigo in Victoria were major gold towns. Ballarat has about 110,000 people. Bendigo has about 120,000 people. They're now regional cities with diverse economies. Iron ore mining has created towns in Western Australia's Pilbara region. Tom Price has about 3,000 people. Newman has about 5,000 people. Karatha has about 17,000 people. Port Hedland has about 14,000 people. These towns were built specifically to house mine workers. Coal mining has created towns in Queensland and New South Wales. Moranbah in Queensland has about 9,000 people. Muswell Brook in New South Wales has about 12,000 people. Singleton has about 17,000 people. Mackay has about 85,000 people. Mount Isa in Queensland is known for copper and lead mining. It has about 18,000 people. Coober Pedy in South Australia is famous for opal mining. It has about 1,700 people. Many people there live underground to escape the heat. Olympic Dam in South Australia is a major uranium and copper mine. The nearest town is Roxby Downs, with about 4,000 people. Mining towns often have a boom and bust cycle. When mineral prices are high, the towns grow rapidly. When prices fall or mines close, people leave quickly. Many mining companies now use fly-in, fly-out workers. Workers live in coastal cities and fly to remote mine sites. So, what about agricultural settlement patterns? Agricultural settlements follow rainfall and soil patterns. The highest rainfall areas near the coast support intensive agriculture. This includes dairy farming, fruit growing, and vegetable production. The Hunter Valley grows grapes and raises cattle. The Riverina region grows rice and wheat. The wheat belt extends in an arc around the arid interior. This area gets enough rainfall to grow wheat and other grains. Western Australia's wheat belt is very large. South Australia also has extensive wheat-growing areas. The pastoral zone is in drier areas. This is used for cattle and sheep grazing on large properties. Some pastoral properties cover thousands of square kilometers. The largest cattle stations are in the Northern Territory and Western Australia. Agricultural towns provide services for surrounding farming areas. They have grain storage facilities, farm supply stores, and livestock sales yards. Many agricultural towns have populations between 1,000 and 10,000 people. Larger agricultural centers might have 20,000 to 50,000 people. Wagga Wagga in New South Wales has about 57,000 people. Bendigo in Victoria has about 120,000 people. Toowoomba in Queensland has about 140,000 people. Shepparton in Victoria has about 52,000 people. Mildura in Victoria has about 35,000 people. These towns serve large agricultural regions. Smaller agricultural towns might have only a few hundred people. They typically have a general store, post office, school, and pub. Many small agricultural towns are declining as farming becomes more mechanized. Fewer people are needed to work the land. Young people often leave for education and jobs in cities. Now let's talk about port city advantages. Port cities have several geographical advantages. They have access to ocean shipping for trade. They can import and export goods efficiently. Many industries locate near ports to reduce transportation costs. Ports also provide employment opportunities. Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth, Adelaide, and Darwin are all major port cities. Sydney's port is at Botany Bay. Melbourne's port is at Port Phillip Bay. Fremantle is Perth's port. It's located at the mouth of the Swan River. Newcastle is a major coal export port north of Sydney. It has about 430,000 people. The port exports millions of tons of coal each year. Port Hedland and Dampier in Western Australia export iron ore. Port Hedland has about 14,000 people. Dampier has about 1,500 people. Gladstone in Queensland exports coal and liquefied natural gas. It has about 35,000 people. Port Lincoln in South Australia is known for seafood exports. It has about 16,000 people. Devonport in Tasmania is the terminal for ferries to mainland Australia. It has about 30,000 people. Ports need deep water for large ships. Natural harbors are ideal, but artificial harbors can be built. Ports also need good transport links to move goods inland. Railways and highways connect ports to inland areas. Container terminals handle manufactured goods. Bulk terminals handle commodities like coal, iron ore, and grain. Some ports specialize in particular commodities. Others handle a variety of goods. Ports compete with each other for business. Efficiency and location determine which ports are most successful. So what about remote community challenges? Remote communities face many challenges. Distance from major cities creates isolation. Basic services like hospitals and schools may be far away. Emergency services may take hours to arrive. Internet and mobile phone coverage can be poor. Electricity supply may be unreliable. Fresh food can be expensive because of transport costs. Employment opportunities are often limited. Many remote communities depend on a single industry. If that industry declines, the whole community suffers. Aboriginal communities in remote areas face particular challenges. Many are located on traditional lands far from cities. Some communities have very small populations of less than 100 people. Papunya in the Northern Territory has about 300 people. Yuendumu has about 900 people. Tennant Creek has about 3,000 people. Katherine has about 10,000 people. These communities often lack adequate housing, health services, and education facilities. Transport to and from remote communities can be expensive. Some communities can only be reached by light aircraft. Others require four-wheel drive vehicles. Seasonal flooding can cut off some communities for months. Many remote mining towns use fly-in, fly-out workers. This reduces the need for permanent communities. But it also creates social isolation for workers. Some remote communities are trying to develop tourism. Others are looking at renewable energy projects. Government support is often needed to maintain remote communities. The Royal Flying Doctor Service provides medical care to remote areas. School of the Air provides education via radio and internet. Now, let's look at transportation corridor development. Transportation corridors have shaped settlement patterns. The main corridors connect major cities along the coast. The Sydney-Melbourne corridor is the busiest. It carries passengers and freight between Australia's two largest cities. The Pacific Highway connects Sydney and Brisbane. The Princes Highway connects Sydney and Melbourne along the coast. The Great Western Highway connects Sydney with the Blue Mountains and beyond. The Hume Highway is the inland route between Sydney and Melbourne. Inland corridors connect coastal cities with interior regions. The Stuart Highway runs from Darwin to Adelaide through Alice Springs. It's about 2,800 kilometers long. The Great Northern Highway connects Perth with the Pilbara region. The Warrego Highway connects Brisbane with inland Queensland. The Newell Highway connects Melbourne and Brisbane through inland areas. Railways also create transportation corridors. The Indian Pacific Railway connects Perth and Sydney. The journey takes about 65 hours. The GON connects Darwin, Alice Springs, and Adelaide. The journey from Darwin to Adelaide takes about 47 hours. The Spirit of Tasmania ferry connects Melbourne and Devonport. Towns often develop along major transportation routes. They provide services for travelers and freight transport. Truck stops, motels, and service stations cluster along highways. Some towns owe their existence to being located on major routes. Others decline when new routes bypass them. The Hume Highway between Sydney and Melbourne was upgraded to bypass many small towns. Airport locations also influence settlement patterns. Major airports need large flat areas and good road access. So what about ghost towns and abandoned settlements? Australia has many ghost towns and abandoned settlements. Most were mining towns that were abandoned when the mines closed. Goldfields in Western Australia, Victoria, and New South Wales have many ghost towns. Some towns were completely abandoned with buildings left to decay. Others have a few residents maintaining historic buildings. Walhalla in Victoria was a major gold mining town. It once had 4,000 people, but now has about 20 permanent residents. Hill End in New South Wales was a gold mining town. It once had 20,000 people, but now has about 100. Silverton in New South Wales was a silver mining town. It now has fewer than 50 residents, but attracts tourists. Gwalia in Western Australia was a gold mining town. It's now a tourist attraction. Wittenoom in Western Australia was abandoned due to asbestos contamination. The government removed it from official maps. About 1,000 people once lived there. Some towns were abandoned due to changing transportation routes. When railways or highways were rerouted, towns lost their purpose. Natural disasters have also created ghost towns. Floods, fires, and droughts have forced people to abandon settlements. Some agricultural towns became ghost towns when farming methods changed. Mechanization meant fewer workers were needed. Climate change and water shortages have affected some rural settlements. Some towns that were once thriving are now struggling. Young people leave for opportunities in cities. Services like banks, post offices, and shops close down. Eventually, only elderly residents remain. Some ghost towns have been revived as tourist attractions. Moving on, Australia's capital cities were chosen for various geographical reasons. Sydney was the first European settlement at Port Jackson. It was chosen because of the natural harbour. Melbourne was established at the head of Port Phillip Bay. The bay provided a good harbour. Brisbane was located on the Brisbane River. The river provided access inland. Perth was established on the Swan River. The river provided fresh water and access to the interior. Adelaide was planned on the coastal plain between hills and sea. The location provided good drainage and access to water. Darwin was chosen for its natural harbour in the north. The harbour is ice-free year-round. Hobart was established at the mouth of the Derwent River. The river provided access to the interior of Tasmania. Canberra was specially designed as the national capital. It was located between Sydney and Melbourne to compromise between the two cities. Most capital cities are located on rivers or harbours. This provided fresh water and shipping access. Many have grown beyond their original boundaries. Urban sprawl is a major feature of Australian capital cities. Sydney has spread over 12,000 square kilometres. Melbourne covers about 10,000 square kilometres. Brisbane covers about 15,000 square kilometres. Perth covers about 6,400 square kilometres. Most growth has been outward rather than upward. This creates long commuting distances. Capital cities contain most of their state's population. Sydney has about 65% of New South Wales population. Melbourne has about 78% of Victoria's population. Brisbane has about 50% of Queensland's population. Perth has about 79% of Western Australia's population. Adelaide has about 77% of South Australia's population. So, let's take a look at the Great Victoria Desert. The Great Victoria Desert is one of Australia's largest deserts. It covers about 348,000 square kilometres. The desert stretches across Western Australia and South Australia. It's located south of the Great Western Plateau. The desert is mostly flat with some low hills and rocky outcrops. The surface is covered with calcrete, which is a type of limestone. There are also areas of red sand and gravel. Some areas have gibber plains. These are surfaces covered with small stones. The Great Victoria Desert gets very little rainfall. Most areas get less than 250 millimeters per year. Some areas get less than 200 millimeters. The rainfall is very unpredictable. It might not rain for years, then there might be heavy downpours. Temperatures can be extreme. Summer temperatures often exceed 40 degrees Celsius during the day. Winter nights can drop below freezing. The daily temperature range can be over 30 degrees Celsius. The desert has sparse vegetation. Most plants are small shrubs that are adapted to dry conditions. Mallee scrubland is common in some areas. Eucalyptus gongylocarpa is a common tree species. The desert is sparsely populated. There are no major towns within the desert. Some Aboriginal communities live on the edges. The nearest towns are Kalgoorlie to the west and Ceduna to the east. Kalgoorlie has about 31,000 people. Ceduna has about 3,500 people. The Air Highway crosses the southern edge of the desert. This highway connects Perth and Adelaide. The desert is named after Queen Victoria. It was explored by Ernest Giles in the 1870 seconds. Giles crossed the desert several times between 1875 and 1876. Now let's talk about Gibson Desert characteristics. The Gibson Desert is located in Western Australia. It covers about 156,000 square kilometers. The desert is east of the Pilbara region and south of the Great Sandy Desert. The surface is mostly laterite and ironstone. Laterite is a red, iron-rich soil that forms in tropical climates. The Gibson Desert has many breakaways and mesas. These are flat-topped hills with steep sides. The desert also has areas of red sand and gravel. Some areas have granite outcrops. The Gibson Desert gets very little rainfall. Most areas get between 200 and 250 millimeters per year. The rainfall is seasonal and unpredictable. Most rain falls during winter from cold fronts. Summer thunderstorms also provide some rainfall. The wettest months are usually June and July. Temperatures in the Gibson Desert are extreme. Summer temperatures often exceed 45 degrees Celsius. Winter temperatures can drop to near freezing at night. The daily temperature range is large. January is usually the hottest month. July is usually the coolest month. The desert has sparse vegetation. Acacia shrublands are common. These are small trees and bushes that can survive in dry conditions. Mulga is a common acacia species. Spinifex grass grows in some areas. The desert is very sparsely populated. There are no towns within the desert. Some mining operations occur on the edges. The Great Central Road crosses the desert from east to west. This road connects Laverton in Western Australia with Ulara near Uluru. The road is about 1,100 kilometers long. The desert is named after Alfred Gibson, who disappeared while exploring the area in 1874. Ernest Giles named the desert after his missing companion. Gibson was part of Giles's expedition team. So what about Tanami Desert features? The Tanami Desert is located in the Northern Territory and Western Australia. It covers about 184,000 square kilometers. The desert is northeast of the Great Sandy Desert and northwest of the Simpson Desert. The Tanami Desert has a rocky surface with areas of red sand. There are many low hills and rocky outcrops. The desert also has some salt lakes that are usually dry. Lake Mackay is on the border between the two states. The Tanami Desert gets more rainfall than some other Australian deserts. Most areas get between 250 and 400 millimeters per year. The northern parts get more rain than the southern parts. The rainfall is seasonal. Most rain falls during summer from monsoons and thunderstorms. Winter is usually dry. The wet season runs from November to March. Temperatures in the Tanami Desert are hot. Summer temperatures often exceed 40 degrees Celsius. Winter temperatures are milder, usually around 20 to 25 degrees Celsius during the day. Nights can be cool in winter. The desert has more vegetation than some other Australian deserts. There are areas of grassland and low shrubland. Acacia trees are common. Bloodwood trees grow in some areas. The desert supports some wildlife, including kangaroos and birds. Red kangaroos are found in the area. The Tanami Desert has some population. There are Aboriginal communities in the area. Balgo Hills is a community with about 400 people. Halls Creek is on the eastern edge of the desert. It has about 1,300 people. The Tanami Road crosses the desert from north to south. This road connects Katherine in the Northern Territory with Halls Creek in Western Australia. The road is about 1,000 kilometers long. The desert has some gold mining operations. The Tanami Gold Mine is one of Australia's largest gold mines. It produces about 450,000 ounces of gold per year. Now let's look at the Great Sandy Desert. The Great Sandy Desert is located in northern Western Australia. It covers about 360,000 square kilometers. This makes it one of Australia's largest deserts. The desert extends from the Pilbara region in the south to the Kimberley region in the north. The surface is mostly red sand with some rocky areas. The sand forms long ridges that run roughly north-south. These sand ridges can be 10 to 20 meters high and several kilometers long. Between the ridges are flat areas called corridors. The sand gets its red color from iron oxide. Some areas have white or yellow sand. The Great Sandy Desert gets low rainfall. Most areas get between 200 and 450 millimeters per year. The northern parts get more rain than the southern parts. Most rainfall occurs during summer from monsoons and cyclones. Winter is usually dry. Broome, on the edge of the desert, gets about 600 millimeters per year. Temperatures in the Great Sandy Desert are hot. Summer temperatures often exceed 40 degrees Celsius. Winter temperatures are milder, but still warm, usually around 25 to 30 degrees Celsius during the day. The coast is cooler than inland areas. The desert has sparse vegetation. Acacia, shrublands, and grasslands are common. Some areas have mallee scrubland. Spinifex grass grows on the sand dunes. The vegetation is denser in the northern parts where there's more rainfall. Boab trees grow in the northern areas. The desert is sparsely populated. Port Hedland is on the northern coast near the desert. It has about 14,000 people. Broome is on the northwestern coast. It has about 14,000 people. The Great Northern Highway runs along the eastern edge of the desert. The Canning Stock route crosses the desert from north to south. This is a historic cattle driving route that's now used by tourists. So what about the Simpson Desert and sand dunes? The Simpson Desert is located in central Australia. It covers about 176,000 square kilometers. The desert extends across the Northern Territory, South Australia, and Queensland. The Simpson Desert is famous for its parallel sand dunes. These dunes run roughly north-south for hundreds of kilometers. The dunes are typically 10 to 35 meters high. Some dunes are over 200 kilometers long. The space between dunes is usually 1 to 3 kilometers. The sand is mostly red in color due to iron oxide. Some areas have white or yellow sand. The dunes are called longitudinal dunes because they run parallel to the prevailing winds. The Simpson Desert gets very little rainfall. Most areas get less than 150 millimeters per year. The rainfall is unpredictable and can vary greatly from year to year. Some years might get 300 millimeters. Others might get only 50 millimeters. Most rain falls from summer thunderstorms. Winter is usually very dry. Temperatures in the Simpson Desert are extreme. Summer temperatures often exceed 50 degrees Celsius. This makes it one of the hottest places in Australia. Winter temperatures can drop below freezing at night. The daily temperature range can be over 35 degrees Celsius. The desert has very sparse vegetation. Most plants grow in the corridors between the sand dunes. Cane grass is one of the few plants that can grow on the dunes themselves. Stipa grass is common in the swales. The desert is very sparsely populated. There are no towns within the desert. Alice Springs is to the west and has about 25,000 people. Birdsville is to the east and has about 100 people. The French Line is a seismic exploration track that crosses the desert. This track is used by four-wheel drive enthusiasts. The QAA Line is another track that crosses the desert from east to west. Now let's talk about the Strzelecki Desert. The Strzelecki Desert is located in South Australia. It covers about 80,000 square kilometers. This makes it one of Australia's smaller deserts. The desert is northeast of Adelaide and west of the Flinders Ranges. The surface is mostly stony, with areas of red sand. There are many low hills and mesas. The desert also has some salt lakes and clay pans. These are flat areas that occasionally fill with water after rain. Lake Frome is a large salt lake in the area. The Strzelecki Desert gets low rainfall. Most areas get between 150 and 250 millimeters per year. The rainfall is winter dominant from cold fronts. Summer is usually dry, except for occasional thunderstorms. The wettest months are usually May to August. Temperatures in the Strzelecki Desert are hot in summer and mild in winter. Summer temperatures often exceed 40 degrees Celsius. Winter temperatures are usually around 15 to 20 degrees Celsius during the day. Frost can occur on winter nights. The daily temperature range is large. The desert has sparse vegetation. Bluebush and saltbush are common shrubs. These plants are adapted to salty soils. There are also areas of mallee scrubland. Stipa grass grows in some areas. The desert has some population. Lee Creek was a coal mining town with about 2,000 people. The mine closed in 2015, and most people left. Lyndhurst is a small town on the eastern edge of the desert. It has about 30 people. Copley is another small town with about 50 people. The Strzelecki Track runs through the desert from north to south. This track connects Lyndhurst with Inaminka. The track is about 460 kilometers long. It follows the route of early explorers. The desert is named after Polish explorer Paul Strzelecki. He explored the area in the 1,840 seconds. So what about the Canning Stock Route? The Canning Stock Route is a historic track that crosses the Great Sandy and Little Sandy deserts in Western Australia. The route runs for about 1,850 kilometers from Halls Creek to Wiluna. It was surveyed by Alfred Canning between 1,906 and 1,910. The route was built to move cattle from the Kimberley region to markets in the south. The Kimberley had good grazing land but was far from population centers. The route crosses some of the most remote and arid parts of Australia. It passes through the Great Sandy Desert and the Gibson Desert. The track follows a series of water wells that were dug during its construction. There are 54 wells along the route. The wells were spaced about 30 to 40 kilometers apart. This was the distance cattle could travel in a day without water. The wells were dug by hand and lined with stones. Many of the wells are still visible today. Some still contain water. Well 33 is the most famous well on the route. The route was used for cattle driving from 1,910 to about 1,960. After that, road transport and improved roads made the route unnecessary for commercial purposes. The last commercial drove was in 1958. The route is now popular with four-wheel drive enthusiasts and adventure tourists. The trip takes about 2 to 3 weeks to complete. Travelers need to be self-sufficient with food, water, and fuel. The route passes through very remote areas with no towns or services. Emergency communication equipment is essential. The track crosses many different types of terrain, including sand dunes, rocky hills, and salt lakes. It's considered one of Australia's most challenging four-wheel drive tracks. About 500 vehicles attempt the route each year. Now let's look at desert climate patterns. Australia's deserts have several different climate patterns. The northern deserts, like the Great Sandy and Tanami, have a hot desert climate. These areas get most of their rainfall during summer from monsoons and thunderstorms. Winter is usually dry. The southern deserts, like the Great Victoria, have a more temperate desert climate. These areas get most of their rainfall during winter from cold fronts. Summer is usually dry. The central deserts, like the Simpson, have very little rainfall in any season. All Australian deserts have high evaporation rates. This means that even when it does rain, the water quickly evaporates. Pan evaporation rates can exceed 3,000 millimeters per year. Temperatures in Australian deserts can be extreme. Daytime temperatures in summer often exceed 40 degrees Celsius. Some areas regularly reach 45 to 50 degrees Celsius. Marble Bar in the Pilbara recorded 49.2 degrees Celsius. Nighttime temperatures can be much cooler. In winter, desert areas can experience frost. The daily temperature range in deserts is large because there's little moisture in the air to trap heat. Humidity in Australian deserts is usually very low. This makes the hot temperatures more bearable than in humid areas. Relative humidity can drop below 10% during hot, dry periods. Wind patterns also affect desert climates. Hot, dry winds can increase evaporation and make conditions even more arid. Dust storms are common in desert areas, especially during drought periods. The Bureau of Meteorology monitors weather conditions in desert areas. Automatic weather stations provide data from remote locations. Climate change may be affecting desert rainfall patterns. Some models suggest that arid areas may become even drier in the future. So, what about arid zone vegetation? Plants in Australia's arid zones have many adaptations to survive in dry conditions. Many plants have small leaves to reduce water loss. Some plants have waxy coatings on their leaves. Others have leaves that are covered in fine hairs. These adaptations help reduce evaporation. Some plants have modified leaves that look like spines or scales. Some plants store water in their stems or roots. Succulents like pigface store water in their fleshy leaves. Many arid zone plants have deep root systems. These roots can extend many meters underground to reach water. Some acacia trees have roots that go down 30 meters. Some plants have extensive shallow root systems that can quickly absorb water when it rains. These roots might spread over areas larger than the plant itself. Acacia trees and shrubs are very common in Australian deserts. There are over 900 species of acacia in Australia. Many have adapted to different arid conditions. Mulga is one of the most widespread acacia species. Mallee scrubland is found in semi-arid areas. Mallee plants can regrow from their roots after fires. This adaptation helps them survive in fire-prone environments. Saltbush and bluebush are common in areas with salty soils. These plants can tolerate high salt levels. They have special mechanisms to exclude salt from their tissues. Spinifex grass is common in sandy areas. This grass grows in clumps and has sharp, spiny leaves. The leaves help reduce water loss and protect the plant from animals. Many arid zone plants have small, inconspicuous flowers. They put most of their energy into survival rather than reproduction. Some plants only flower after rainfall. Others flower at specific times of year when conditions are most favorable. The spacing between plants in arid zones is usually large. This reduces competition for water and nutrients. Now let's talk about water sources in desert regions. Water is scarce in Australia's desert regions. Most surface water is temporary and only appears after rainfall. Permanent water sources are rare and widely scattered. Rock pools can hold water for weeks or months after rain. These pools are often found in rocky areas where water collects in natural depressions. The rock helps prevent evaporation. Springs occur where underground water reaches the surface. There are some artesian springs in desert areas. These springs are fed by water from the Great Artesian Basin. Dalhousie Springs in South Australia is an example. It's located in the Great Western Desert. The springs have over 60 separate vents. Soaks are places where water seeps to the surface. These often occur in creek beds or low-lying areas. Aboriginal people have used these water sources for thousands of years. They have detailed knowledge of where to find water in desert areas. This knowledge was passed down through generations. Wells have been dug in many desert areas. The Canning Stock Route has 54 wells along its length. Many of these wells are no longer maintained. Some have collapsed or filled with sand. Bores have been drilled to access underground water. These are common on cattle stations and at remote communities. Some bores are hundreds of meters deep. Rainwater tanks are used to collect water during the rare rainfall events. Many remote settlements depend entirely on rainwater collection. Large tanks can store thousands of liters. Desalination plants can provide water in coastal desert areas. Some mining operations use desalinated seawater. This is expensive, but necessary in areas without other water sources. Water trucks bring water to some remote communities. This is expensive but necessary where other sources are unavailable. A single truck might carry 20,000 liters. Conservation of water is essential in desert regions. Even small amounts of water can be life-saving. And remember to subscribe to our channel. So let's take a look at Blue Mountains Formation. The Blue Mountains are located west of Sydney in New South Wales. They cover about 11,400 square kilometers. The mountains are part of the Great Dividing Range. The Blue Mountains are made of sandstone. This sandstone was formed about 250 million years ago. The area was once covered by shallow seas. Over time, sand and sediment built up on the seafloor. This sediment was compressed and turned into sandstone. The sandstone layers are called the Narrabeen Group and Hawkesbury Sandstone. The mountains get their blue color from eucalyptus trees. The trees release oil droplets into the air. These droplets scatter blue light. The Blue Mountains have many cliffs and deep valleys. The valleys were carved by rivers over millions of years. The Jameson Valley is one of the most famous valleys. The Three Sisters Rock Formation is located in this valley. The Three Sisters are 922, 918, and 906 meters high. The Blue Mountains have an elevation of about 1,000 meters above sea level. Mount Wilson is one of the highest peaks at 1,196 meters. The Blue Mountains have a temperate climate. Summer temperatures are usually around 20 to 25 degrees Celsius. Winter temperatures can drop to around 5 to 10 degrees Celsius. Snow occasionally falls on the higher peaks. The area receives about 1,000 millimeters of rainfall per year. Most rain falls during winter. The Blue Mountains are popular with tourists. About 4 million people visit each year. Katoomba is the main tourist town with about 8,000 people. The area became a World Heritage Site in 2000. The Blue Mountains contain 91 eucalyptus species. Now let's talk about the Snowy Mountains region. The Snowy Mountains are located in southeastern Australia. They extend across New South Wales, Victoria, and the Australian Capital Territory. The Snowy Mountains are part of the Great Dividing Range. They cover about 6,200 square kilometers. The Snowy Mountains contain Australia's highest peaks. Mount Kosciuszko is the highest at 2,228 meters. Mount Townsend is the second highest at 2,209 meters. Mount Twynham is 2,196 meters high. The mountains are made of granite and metamorphic rocks. These rocks are very old, some over 400 million years old. The area was shaped by glacial activity during ice ages. The last ice age ended about 10,000 years ago. Glacial lakes like Blue Lake and Club Lake were formed during this time. The Snowy Mountains have an alpine climate. Summer temperatures are usually around 15 to 20 degrees Celsius. Winter temperatures often drop below freezing. Snow falls every year from June to September. Some areas get over 2 meters of snow. Perisher gets an average of 1.9 meters of snow each year. The area receives about 1,500 millimeters of precipitation per year. Much of this falls as snow during winter. The Snowy Mountains are the source of several major rivers. The Murray River starts in the Snowy Mountains. The Murrumbidgee River also starts here. The Snowy River flows east to the coast. The Snowy Mountains scheme diverts water from these rivers. This scheme includes 16 major dams and 7 power stations. The scheme took 25 years to build and was completed in 1974. The area has several ski resorts. Thredbo and Perisher are the largest resorts. Charlotte Pass is the highest resort at 1,760 meters elevation. So what about Flinders Ranges geology? The Flinders Ranges are located in South Australia. They extend north from Adelaide for about 430 kilometers. The ranges cover about 25,000 square kilometers. The Flinders Ranges are some of Australia's oldest mountains. The rocks are between 540 and 1,600 million years old. The ranges were formed by folding and faulting of the Earth's crust. This happened during several geological periods. The Adelaide geosyncline was formed about 800 million years ago. The Flinders Ranges have many different rock types. There are sandstones, limestones, and shales. Some areas have quartzite and slate. The Pound subgroup contains thick sandstone layers. The ranges also contain some of the world's oldest fossils. Ediacaran fossils from 540 million years ago are found here. These are some of the earliest complex life forms. The fossils include Dickinsonia and Spriggina. The highest peak is St. Mary Peak at 1,171 meters. Wilpena Pound is a natural amphitheater in the ranges. It's about 17 kilometers long and 8 kilometers wide. The pound was formed by upfolding of rock layers. The ranges have an arid climate. Summer temperatures often exceed 35 degrees Celsius. Winter temperatures are usually around 15 to 20 degrees Celsius. The area receives about 250 to 400 millimeters of rainfall per year. Most rain falls during winter. The Flinders Ranges have sparse vegetation. Mallee scrubland is common in lower areas. Some areas have open woodlands. The ranges are sparsely populated. Hawker is the largest town with about 360 people. Quorn has about 1,200 people. The Peachey Reachey Railway operates between Quorn and Port Augusta. Now let's look at the Macdonnell Ranges. The Macdonnell Ranges are located in central Australia around Alice Springs. They extend east and west of Alice Springs for about 644 kilometers. The ranges are divided into the East Macdonnells and West Macdonnells. The Macdonnell Ranges are very old mountains. The rocks are between 800 and 1,800 million years old. The ranges were formed by folding and faulting. Over time, erosion has worn down the mountains. The ranges are made of quartzite, sandstone, and schist. The quartzite forms the main ridges. It's very hard and resistant to erosion. The Heavitree quartzite is the oldest rock unit. The highest peak is Mount Zeil at 1,531 meters. Mount Sonder is 1,380 meters high. The Macdonnell Ranges have many gaps and gorges. These were carved by rivers over millions of years. Stanley Chasm is a famous narrow gorge. It's only 3 meters wide in places. Simpsons Gap and Heavitree Gap are other well-known gorges. Kings Canyon is located in the George Gill Range, which is part of the Macdonnells. The canyon is about 270 meters deep. The ranges have an arid climate. Summer temperatures often exceed 40 degrees Celsius. Winter temperatures are usually around 20 to 25 degrees Celsius during the day. Nights can be cold in winter, sometimes dropping below 5 degrees Celsius. The area receives about 280 millimeters of rainfall per year. Rain is unpredictable and can vary greatly from year to year. The Macdonnell Ranges have sparse vegetation. Acacia woodlands grow in some gorges. Desert oak trees are found in sandy areas. Ghost gums grow near water sources. The ranges are home to many Aboriginal communities. Alice Springs is located in a gap in the ranges. It has about 25,000 people. So what about the Grampians mountain system? The Grampians are located in western Victoria. They cover about 1,677 square kilometers. The Grampians are also known by their Aboriginal name, Garryweird. The mountains are made of sandstone. This sandstone was formed about 400 million years ago. The Grampians were uplifted and tilted during mountain building events. The eastern face of the mountains is steep and cliff-like. The western slopes are more gentle. The highest peak is Mount William at 1,167 meters. The pinnacle is a famous viewpoint at 1,008 meters elevation. Mount Difficult is 1,040 meters high. The Grampians have many waterfalls and rock pools. Mackenzie Falls is the largest waterfall. It drops about 30 meters. The falls flow year-round. Silverband Falls drops 84 meters. The Grampians have a temperate climate. Summer temperatures are usually around 20 to 25 degrees Celsius. Winter temperatures are around 10 to 15 degrees Celsius. The area receives about 600 to 800 millimeters of rainfall per year. Most rain falls during winter. The Grampians have diverse vegetation. There are forests, woodlands, and heathlands. Over 900 plant species grow in the area. About 200 of these are rare or endangered. The Grampians bottlebrush is found nowhere else. The Grampians are home to many animals. Kangaroos, emus, and echidnas live in the area. Over 200 bird species have been recorded. The Grampians are popular with tourists. About 2 million people visit each year. The area is known for rock climbing and hiking. Mount Arapiles is a world-famous rock climbing destination. Halls Gap is the main tourist town. It has about 430 people. The area has over 160 kilometers of walking trails. Now let's talk about the Stirling Ranges. The Stirling Ranges are located in southern Western Australia. They are about 340 kilometers southeast of Perth. The ranges are about 65 kilometers long and 15 kilometers wide. The Stirling Ranges are made of quartzite and sandstone. These rocks are about 1,200 million years old. The rocks belong to the Stirling Range Formation. The ranges were formed by uplift and folding. They rise abruptly from the surrounding plains. The plains around the ranges are only about 300 meters above sea level. The highest peak is Bluff Knoll at 1,099 meters. This is the highest peak in southern Western Australia. The Stirling Ranges have 42 peaks over 300 meters high. Toolbrunup Peak is 1,052 meters high. Mount Hassel is 1,030 meters high. Ellen Peak is 1,012 meters high. The ranges have a Mediterranean climate. Summer temperatures are usually around 25 to 30 degrees Celsius. Winter temperatures are around 10 to 15 degrees Celsius. The area receives about 600 to 700 millimeters of rainfall per year. Most rain falls during winter. Snow occasionally falls on the higher peaks. This is rare in Western Australia. The Stirling Ranges have unique vegetation. There are over 1,500 plant species in the area. About 87 of these are found nowhere else in the world. Many plants flower in spring, creating colorful displays. The ranges are home to many animals. Honey possums and mountain dragons live in the area. The Stirling Ranges are popular with hikers. Bluff Knoll is the most popular climb. The climb takes about 3 hours return. The area became a national park in 1913. This makes it one of Australia's oldest national parks. So what about the Hamersley Ranges? The Hamersley Ranges are located in the Pilbara region of Western Australia. They extend for about 300 kilometers. The ranges are made of banded iron formations. These rocks are about 2,500 million years old. They contain some of the world's largest iron ore deposits. The rocks were formed when the Earth's atmosphere had very little oxygen. Iron dissolved in ancient oceans was deposited on the seafloor. When oxygen levels increased, the iron oxidized and formed these distinctive banded rocks. The formations are part of the Hamersley group. The highest peak is Mount Meharry at 1,249 meters. This is the highest peak in Western Australia. Mount Bruce is 1,235 meters high. The Hamersley Ranges have many deep gorges. Carrigini Gorge is famous for its red rocks and pools of water. Dales Gorge has permanent waterholes. Wieano Gorge is over 100 meters deep. The gorges were carved by rivers over millions of years. The ranges have an arid climate. Summer temperatures often exceed 40 degrees Celsius. Some areas reach 50 degrees Celsius. Winter temperatures are usually around 20 to 25 degrees Celsius. The area receives about 300 to 400 millimeters of rainfall per year. Most rain falls during summer cyclones. The Hamersley Ranges have sparse vegetation. Acacia shrublands are common. Some gorges have permanent springs that support different vegetation. The ranges are important for iron ore mining. Companies like Rio Tinto and BHP operate large mines in the area. The mines produce about 300 million tons of iron ore per year. Tom Price and Newman are mining towns in the ranges. Tom Price has about 3,000 people. Newman has about 5,000 people. The area is also popular with tourists who visit the national parks. Now let's look at the Glasshouse Mountains. The Glasshouse Mountains are located in southeastern Queensland. They are about 70 kilometers north of Brisbane. The Glasshouse Mountains are volcanic plugs. They were formed about 25 to 27 million years ago. Volcanic activity created magma chambers underground. The magma cooled and hardened into rock. Over time, the softer surrounding rocks eroded away. This left the hard volcanic cores standing as isolated peaks. There are about 13 main peaks in the Glasshouse Mountains. Mount Birwa is the highest at 556 meters. Mount Tibrogargan is 364 meters high. Mount Coonawarrin is 377 meters high. Mount Nungun is 253 meters high. The peaks are made of different types of volcanic rock. Some are made of trachyte, others of rhyolite. The different rock types create different colors and textures. The Glasshouse Mountains have a subtropical climate. Summer temperatures are usually around 25 to 30 degrees Celsius. Winter temperatures are around 15 to 20 degrees Celsius. The area receives about 1,200 millimeters of rainfall per year. Most rain falls during summer. The Glasshouse Mountains have diverse vegetation. There are rainforests, woodlands, and heathlands. Many rare plants grow in the area. The mountains are home to koalas, wallabies, and many bird species. Over 200 bird species have been recorded. The Glasshouse Mountains are popular with rock climbers and hikers. The area is also popular with tourists. About 1.5 million people visit each year. The Glasshouse Mountains were named by Captain James Cook in 1770. He thought they looked like glass furnaces. The area is sacred to local Aboriginal people. The Jinibara and Kabi Kabi people have traditional connections to the area. So, what about mountain climate variations? Australia's mountain ranges have different climates depending on their location and elevation. Mountains in the north, like those in Queensland, have tropical climates. Mountains in the south have temperate climates. Higher mountains are cooler than lower areas. Temperature drops about 6.5 degrees Celsius for every 1,000 meters of elevation. This is called the environmental lapse rate. Mountains also receive more rainfall than surrounding lowlands. This happens because air rises over mountains and cools. Cool air can't hold as much moisture, so it rains. The windward side of mountains gets more rain than the leeward side. This creates a rain shadow effect. The Snowy Mountains get the most precipitation of any Australian mountains. Some areas get over 2,000 millimeters per year. The Glasshouse Mountains get about 1,200 millimeters per year. The McDonnell Ranges get only about 280 millimeters per year. The Blue Mountains get about 1,000 millimeters per year. Mountain climates can vary greatly over short distances. Valley floors are warmer than ridges. North-facing slopes are warmer than south-facing slopes. This creates many different microclimates. Snow falls on several Australian mountain ranges. The Snowy Mountains get snow every year. The Blue Mountains occasionally get snow. Even some mountains in Queensland can get snow on rare occasions. The Stirling Ranges in Western Australia occasionally get snow. Mountain weather can change quickly. Temperatures can drop rapidly when clouds move in. Wind speeds are usually higher on mountains than in valleys. The Snowy Mountains can have winds over 100 kilometers per hour. Moving on. Australia's alpine ecosystems are found above the tree line in the Snowy Mountains. The tree line is at about 1,850 meters elevation. Above this height, trees can't grow because it's too cold. Alpine areas cover only about 11,300 square kilometers in Australia. This makes them very rare ecosystems. Alpine areas are found on Mount Kosciuszko, Mount Townsend, and other high peaks. Alpine areas have unique plants and animals. Many species are found nowhere else in the world. Alpine plants are adapted to cold temperatures and strong winds. They grow close to the ground to avoid wind damage. Many have small, thick leaves to reduce water loss. Alpine plants include snow daisies, alpine bottlebrush, and cushion plants. Some plants can survive being frozen for months. The snowgrass covers large areas above the tree line. Alpine areas are home to unique animals. The mountain pygmy possum is found only in alpine areas. It's Australia's only hibernating marsupial. It weighs only 45 grams. Alpine areas also have unique insects and spiders. Many are found nowhere else. The alpine water skink is found only above 1,400 meters elevation. The boundaries of alpine ecosystems are determined by temperature and elevation. Climate change is affecting these boundaries. Warmer temperatures are causing the tree line to move higher. This reduces the area of alpine habitat. Alpine ecosystems are fragile and take a long time to recover from damage. Grazing by cattle and sheep has damaged some alpine areas. Ski resort development has also affected alpine ecosystems. There are now strict rules about development in alpine areas. Most alpine areas are protected in national parks. Kosciuszko National Park protects most of Australia's alpine areas. So, let's take a look at Kangaroo Island geography. Kangaroo Island is located off the coast of South Australia. It's about 112 kilometers southwest of Adelaide. Kangaroo Island is Australia's third largest island after Tasmania and Melville Island. It covers about 4,405 square kilometers. The island is about 155 kilometers long and 55 kilometers wide. The highest point is Prospect Hill at 307 meters above sea level. Kangaroo Island has a rugged coastline with cliffs, beaches, and bays. The island has forests, farmland, and scrubland. Much of the western end is protected as Flinders Chase National Park. The island has a Mediterranean climate. Summer temperatures are usually around 20 to 25 degrees Celsius. Winter temperatures are around 10 to 15 degrees Celsius. The island receives about 450 millimeters of rainfall per year. Most rain falls during winter. Kangaroo Island has a population of about 4,700 people. Kingscote is the largest town, with about 1,800 people. Penishaw and American River are other towns on the island. The island is accessible by ferry from Cape Jervis or by air from Adelaide. Tourism is a major industry, with about 140,000 visitors per year. The island is famous for its wildlife. Kangaroos, echidnas, and koalas live on the island. The island also has many native birds. Remarkable Rocks is a famous granite formation on the south coast. The rocks are balanced on top of each other. The island was first explored by Matthew Flinders in 1802. It was named after the kangaroos he found there. Now let's talk about Fraser Island sand formations. Fraser Island is located off the coast of Queensland. It's about 250 kilometers north of Brisbane. Fraser Island is the world's largest sand island. It covers about 1,840 square kilometers. The island is about 123 kilometers long and 22 kilometers wide. Fraser Island was formed over about 750,000 years. Sand was blown from beaches and river mouths onto the island. The island has massive sand dunes. Some dunes are over 200 meters high. The sand comes in different colors, including white, yellow, and red. The island has over 100 freshwater lakes. Lake Mackenzie is the most famous lake. It has white sand beaches and clear blue water. Fraser Island has rainforests growing on sand. Satinay and brushbox trees grow in the rainforests. The island is home to about 350 bird species. It also has dingoes, which are wild dogs. Fraser Island has a subtropical climate. Summer temperatures are usually around 25 to 30 degrees Celsius. Winter temperatures are around 15 to 20 degrees Celsius. The island receives about 1,600 millimeters of rainfall per year. Fraser Island became a World Heritage Site in 1992. About 500,000 tourists visit the island each year. The island can only be accessed by ferry or barge. Four-wheel drive vehicles are needed to drive on the sand. The island was named after Eliza Fraser, who was shipwrecked there in 1836. So, what about King Island characteristics? King Island is located in Bass Strait between Tasmania and Victoria. It's about 80 kilometers northwest of Tasmania. King Island covers about 1,098 square kilometers. The island is about 64 kilometers long and 27 kilometers wide. King Island was connected to Tasmania during ice ages when sea levels were lower. The island separated from Tasmania about 12,000 years ago. King Island is relatively flat, with gently rolling hills. The highest point is only 214 meters above sea level. The island has a rugged coastline with cliffs and beaches. The island has fertile soils that support agriculture. Dairy farming is the main industry. The island produces high-quality beef and dairy products. King Island has a temperate oceanic climate. Summer temperatures are usually around 18 to 22 degrees Celsius. Winter temperatures are around 10 to 14 degrees Celsius. The island receives about 700 millimeters of rainfall per year. King Island has a population of about 1,600 people. Currie is the main town with about 800 people. The island has an airport with regular flights to Melbourne and Tasmania. King Island is known for its cheese and beef. The island also has some kelp harvesting. Tourism is growing with visitors coming for the scenery and local produce. The island has several shipwrecks around its coast. These wrecks are popular with divers. King Island was first sighted by Europeans in 1798. Now let's look at Rottnest Island features. Rottnest Island is located off the coast of Western Australia. It's about 18 kilometers west of Perth. Rottnest Island covers about 19 square kilometers. The island is about 11 kilometers long and 4.5 kilometers wide. Rottnest Island is made of limestone. The limestone was formed from coral reefs about 125,000 years ago. The island has low hills and salt lakes. The highest point is 45 meters above sea level. The island has many beaches and bays. Rottnest Island is famous for quokkas. Quokkas are small marsupials that are found almost nowhere else. They weigh about 2.5 to 5 kilograms. Quokkas look like they're smiling. The island has about 10,000 to 12,000 quokkas. Rottnest Island has a Mediterranean climate. Summer temperatures are usually around 25 to 30 degrees Celsius. Winter temperatures are around 15 to 20 degrees Celsius. The island receives about 600 millimeters of rainfall per year. Rottnest Island has no permanent residents. About 500,000 tourists visit each year. The island can be reached by ferry from Perth or Fremantle. Cars are not allowed on the island. Visitors use bicycles or buses to get around. The island was used as a prison for Aboriginal people from 1838 to 1931. It's now a popular holiday destination. The island has several lakes that are saltier than the ocean. So what about Lord Howe Island geology? Lord Howe Island is located in the Pacific Ocean, about 600 kilometers east of Australia. The island is part of New South Wales. Lord Howe Island covers about 17 square kilometers. The island is about 11 kilometers long and 2.8 kilometers wide. Lord Howe Island is volcanic in origin. It was formed by volcanic activity about 7 million years ago. The island has two main mountains. Mount Gower is 875 meters high. Mount Lidgebird is 777 meters high. The island also has a coral reef. The reef is the world's southernmost coral reef. Lord Howe Island has unique plants and animals. About 105 native plant species grow on the island. About 113 of these are found nowhere else. The island is home to the Lord Howe Island stick insect. This insect was thought to be extinct but was rediscovered in 2001. The island has a subtropical climate. Summer temperatures are usually around 20 to 25 degrees Celsius. Winter temperatures are around 15 to 20 degrees Celsius. The island receives about 1,600 millimeters of rainfall per year. Lord Howe Island became a World Heritage Site in 1982. The island has a permanent population of about 350 people. Only 400 tourists are allowed on the island at any time. The island was discovered by Europeans in 1788. It was uninhabited when they found it. Now let's talk about Norfolk Island geography. Norfolk Island is located in the Pacific Ocean, about 1,400 kilometers east of Australia. The island is an external territory of Australia. Norfolk Island covers about 35 square kilometers. The island is about 8 kilometers long and 5 kilometers wide. Norfolk Island is volcanic in origin. It was formed by volcanic activity about 2 to 3 million years ago. The island has fertile volcanic soils. The highest point is Mount Bates at 319 meters above sea level. Norfolk Island has cliffs around much of its coastline. The island has Norfolk pines, which are native to the island. These trees can grow over 50 meters tall. Norfolk Island has a subtropical climate. Summer temperatures are usually around 20 to 25 degrees Celsius. Winter temperatures are around 15 to 20 degrees Celsius. The island receives about 1,300 millimeters of rainfall per year. Norfolk Island has a population of about 1,750 people. Burnt pine is the main commercial area. The island was first settled by Polynesians about 700 years ago. Later, it became a British penal colony. Many residents are descendants of bounty mutineers who came from Pitcairn Island in 1856. Norfolk Island has its own government and makes its own laws. The island has an airport with flights to Australia and New Zealand. Tourism is the main industry. The island was discovered by Captain James Cook in 1774. So, what about Phillip Island Formation? Phillip Island is located in Victoria, about 140 kilometers south of Melbourne. The island is connected to the mainland by a bridge. Phillip Island covers about 100 square kilometers. The island is about 23 kilometers long and 9 kilometers wide. Phillip Island is made mainly of granite and sedimentary rocks. The granite is about 400 million years old. The island has low hills and coastal plains. The highest point is about 100 meters above sea level. Phillip Island is famous for its penguin colony. Little penguins come ashore at Summerland Beach every evening. The colony has about 32,000 penguins. The Penguin Parade attracts about 500,000 visitors per year. The island also has fur seals at Seal Rocks. Phillip Island has a temperate oceanic climate. Summer temperatures are usually around 20 to 25 degrees Celsius. Winter temperatures are around 10 to 15 degrees Celsius. The island receives about 800 millimeters of rainfall per year. Phillip Island has a population of about 13,000 people. Cowes is the main town with about 5,500 people. The island is also famous for motorcycle racing. The Australian Motorcycle Grand Prix is held at Phillip Island Circuit each year. The island was named by George Bass in 1798. He named it after Arthur Phillip, the first governor of New South Wales. Now let's look at Christmas Island features. Christmas Island is located in the Indian Ocean, about 2,600 kilometers northwest of Perth. The island is an external territory of Australia. Christmas Island covers about 135 square kilometers. The island is about 19 kilometers long and 14.5 kilometers wide. Christmas Island is made of limestone and volcanic rock. The island has cliffs around most of its coastline. The highest point is Murray Hill, at 361 meters above sea level. Christmas Island is famous for its red crab migration. About 50 million red crabs live on the island. During the wet season, the crabs migrate from the forest to the coast to breed. Christmas Island has unique wildlife. About 20 bird species live on the island. The Christmas Island frigate bird is found nowhere else. The island also has several species of bats. Christmas Island has a tropical climate. Temperatures are usually around 25 to 30 degrees Celsius year-round. The island has wet and dry seasons. The wet season runs from December to April. The island receives about 2,000 millimeters of rainfall per year. Christmas Island has a population of about 1,900 people. Flying Fish Cove is the main settlement. The island was mined for phosphate for over 100 years. Mining stopped in 1987. The island was named by Captain William Miners, who arrived on Christmas Day 1643. So what about Cocos Island's characteristics? The Cocos Islands are located in the Indian Ocean, about 2,900 kilometers northwest of Perth. The islands are an external territory of Australia. The Cocos Islands consist of 2 coral atolls. The southern atoll has 26 coral islands. Only 2 islands are inhabited. West Island has most of the population. Home Island has the Cocos Malay community. The total land area is about 14 square kilometers. The islands are very low-lying. The highest point is only 5 meters above sea level. The islands are made of coral sand and limestone. Coconut palms cover much of the land. The islands were named after these coconut palms. The islands have beautiful lagoons with clear blue water. The Cocos Islands have a tropical climate. Temperatures are usually around 25 to 30 degrees Celsius year-round. The islands have wet and dry seasons. The islands receive about 2,000 millimeters of rainfall per year. The Cocos Islands have a population of about 600 people. About 400 people live on West Island. About 200 people live on Home Island. The islands can only be reached by air. Flights come from Perth twice a week. The flight takes about 4 hours. The islands were discovered by Captain William Keeling in 1609. Moving to the Coral Cays, they are small islands formed from coral and sand. They are found in the Great Barrier Reef and other coral reef systems. Coral cays start as coral reefs growing in shallow water. When the coral reaches the surface, waves break coral pieces off the reef. Wind and waves push this material into piles above the high tide level. Over time, these piles become permanent islands. Plants begin to grow on the cays. Most coral cays are very small and low-lying. They are usually less than 5 meters above sea level. Lady Elliot Island is a coral cay that covers about 45 hectares. Green Island, near Cairns, is another coral cay. It covers about 15 hectares. Heron Island is a coral cay that's about 17 hectares. Coral cays are important nesting sites for seabirds and sea turtles. Thousands of birds nest on some cays during breeding season. Sea turtles come ashore to lay eggs on the beaches. Coral cays are very fragile environments. They can be damaged by storms, rising sea levels, and human activities. Climate change is a major threat to coral cays. Warmer water temperatures can kill the coral reefs that the cays depend on. Rising sea levels could flood the low-lying islands. Many coral cays are protected as national parks or marine parks. Some cays have research stations where scientists study coral reefs and marine life. So let's take a look at the world's oldest rocks. Australia has some of the world's oldest rocks. The oldest rocks are found in Western Australia. The Jack Hills contain zircon crystals that are about 4.4 billion years old. These are the oldest known pieces of Earth. The Pilbara region has rocks that are about 3.5 billion years old. These rocks contain some of the earliest evidence of life on Earth. The rocks are called stromatolites. They were formed by ancient bacteria. The Yilgarn Craton in Western Australia has rocks that are over 3 billion years old. The Kaapvaal Craton in South Africa has rocks of similar age. Australia's old rocks formed when the Earth was very different. The atmosphere had no oxygen. The surface was much hotter. These ancient rocks help scientists understand how the Earth formed. They also show how life began on our planet. The Jack Hills zircons were formed when the Earth was only about 160 million years old. That's very young compared to the Earth's current age of 4.6 billion years. The rocks have survived billions of years of erosion, earthquakes, and volcanic activity. Most rocks from this time period have been destroyed. Australia's ancient rocks are studied by geologists from around the world. They use special equipment to date the rocks. The techniques include radiometric dating. This measures the decay of radioactive elements in the rocks. Now let's talk about the largest sand island. Fraser Island is the world's largest sand island. It's located off the coast of Queensland. The island covers about 1,840 square kilometers. Fraser Island is about 123 kilometers long and 22 kilometers wide. The island is made entirely of sand. The sand was deposited over about 750,000 years. Wind and ocean currents brought sand from the Australian mainland. The sand built up layer by layer to form the island. Some sand dunes on Fraser Island are over 200 meters high. The sand comes in different colors. There's white sand, yellow sand, and red sand. The different colors come from different minerals. Fraser Island has over 100 freshwater lakes. This is unusual for a sand island. The lakes formed when organic matter created an impermeable layer. This stops water from draining through the sand. Lake Mackenzie is the most famous lake on the island. Despite being made of sand, Fraser Island has forests. The trees grow in sand that's millions of years old. The island has rainforests, woodlands, and heath. Fraser Island is home to the purest strain of dingoes in Australia. The island became a World Heritage Site in 1992. About 500,000 people visit Fraser Island each year. The island can only be accessed by ferry or barge. Four-wheel drive vehicles are needed to drive on the sand. So what about the longest straight railway line? Australia has the world's longest straight railway line. The line is part of the Trans-Australian Railway. It runs across the Nullarbor Plain. The straight section is 478 kilometers long. The line runs from east to west across South Australia and Western Australia. It connects Adelaide and Perth. The railway was built between 1912 and 1917. It was built to connect the eastern and western parts of Australia. Before the railway, it took weeks to travel between Adelaide and Perth. The journey had to be done by ship around the southern coast. The Nullarbor Plain is very flat. This is why the railway could be built in a straight line. The word Nullarbor means no trees in Latin. The plain is mostly treeless limestone. The railway line crosses some very remote areas. There are long stretches with no towns or settlements. Some sections have no roads nearby. The Indian Pacific train uses this railway line. The train journey from Sydney to Perth takes about 65 hours. The train stops at several towns along the way. The longest stop is in Adelaide. Passengers can get off the train to explore the towns. The straight section takes about 10 hours to cross. Many passengers sleep through this part of the journey. Now let's look at the driest inhabited continent. Australia is the driest inhabited continent on Earth. About 70% of Australia receives less than 500 millimeters of rainfall per year. About 35% receives less than 250 millimeters per year. Only Antarctica is drier than Australia, but Antarctica has no permanent population. Most of Australia's interior is arid or semi-arid. The Great Victoria Desert, Gibson Desert, and Great Sandy Desert are all very dry. Some areas get less than 150 millimeters of rain per year. The Simpson Desert is one of the driest places. Rainfall in Australia is also very unpredictable. Some years might get twice the average rainfall. Other years might get half the average. This makes farming and water management difficult. El Niño events make Australia even drier. During El Niño years, eastern Australia gets much less rain. This can cause severe droughts. The Murray-Darling Basin is often affected by droughts. Australia's cities are mostly located in wetter areas near the coast. Perth gets about 730 millimeters of rain per year. Sydney gets about 1,200 millimeters per year. But these amounts are still low compared to other continents. Africa gets an average of 670 millimeters per year. Australia gets an average of only 465 millimeters per year. The dry climate affects Australia's vegetation and wildlife. Many plants and animals are adapted to dry conditions. So what about the flattest continent? Australia is the flattest continent on Earth. The average elevation is only about 330 meters above sea level. This is much lower than other continents. Asia has an average elevation of about 960 meters. North America averages about 720 meters. Australia's low elevation is due to its geological history. Much of the continent sits on very old, stable rocks. These rocks have been worn down by erosion over millions of years. The Great Western Plateau covers about 2/3 of Australia. This plateau is mostly flat with some low hills. The highest point in Australia is Mount Kosciuszko at 2,228 meters. This is much lower than the highest peaks on other continents. Mount Everest in Asia is 8,849 meters high. Denali in North America is 6,190 meters high. About 87% of Australia is less than 500 meters above sea level. Only about 0.1% is above 1,500 meters. The flat terrain has advantages and disadvantages. It makes road and railway construction easier, but it also means rivers flow slowly and can flood easily. The flat landscape is one reason why Australia's population is concentrated near the coast. The interior is flat, but also very dry. Most people prefer to live in the more varied coastal areas. Now let's talk about unique geographical processes. Australia has several unique geographical processes. One is the formation of breakaways. Breakaways are steep-sided hills with flat tops. They're found throughout the Australian interior. Breakaways form when hard rock layers protect softer rocks below. Erosion removes the soft rock around the edges. This leaves isolated hills with cliff-like sides. Another unique process is the formation of gibber plains. Gibber plains are flat areas covered with small stones. The stones are called gibbers. They form when chemical weathering breaks down rocks. The fine material is blown away by wind. This leaves behind a surface of small stones. Salt lakes are another unique feature. Australia has many salt lakes that are usually dry. When it rains, the lakes fill with water. When the water evaporates, it leaves behind salt crystals. Lake Eyre is the largest salt lake. Laterite formation is common in northern Australia. Laterite is a red, iron-rich soil. It forms in tropical climates with high rainfall. The iron is concentrated near the surface. Duri crusts are hard layers that form at or near the surface. They include calcrete, silcrete, and ferrocrete. These crusts form when minerals are dissolved and then redeposited. Australia's unique processes are due to its age, climate, and geological history. So, what about record-breaking features? Australia has many record-breaking geographical features. It has the world's largest monolith, which is Uluru. Uluru is about 348 meters high and 9.4 kilometers around. It's made of sandstone that's about 550 million years old. Australia has the world's largest coral reef system. The Great Barrier Reef stretches for about 2,300 kilometers. It covers an area of about 344,400 square kilometers. Australia has the world's largest sand island, which is Fraser Island. The island covers about 1,840 square kilometers. Australia has some of the world's oldest rocks. Zircon crystals in Western Australia are about 4.4 billion years old. Australia has the world's longest golf course. The Nullarbor Links golf course stretches for 1,365 kilometers. It has 18 holes spread across 2 states. Australia has the world's largest cattle station. Anna Creek Station in South Australia covers about 24,000 square kilometers. That's larger than Israel. Australia has the world's deepest mine. The Super Pit gold mine in Kalgoorlie is about 600 meters deep. Australia has the world's longest fence. The Dingo Fence stretches for about 5,600 kilometers. It was built to keep dingoes out of southeastern Australia. Australia has the world's largest rock. Mount Augustus in Western Australia is about twice the size of Uluru. Now let's look at endemic landforms. Australia has many landforms that are found nowhere else. Breakaways are steep hills with flat tops. They're common in the Australian interior. Tors are rock piles that form when granite is weathered. They're found in many parts of Australia. Wave rock in Western Australia is a famous granite tor. It looks like a giant wave about to break. The Olgas, or Kata Tajuta, are a group of large dome-shaped rocks. They're made of conglomerate rock. Conglomerate is rock made of rounded pebbles cemented together. The 12 Apostles are limestone stacks off the Victorian coast. They formed when waves eroded the coastline. Only 8 of the original stacks remain standing. Devil's Marbles are large granite boulders in the Northern Territory. They formed when granite was weathered into rounded shapes. Remarkable rocks on Kangaroo Island are balanced granite boulders. They were shaped by wind and rain over millions of years. The Pinnacles in Western Australia are limestone pillars. They formed when plant roots created holes in limestone. The plants died and left behind the pillars. Kari forests in Western Australia have some of the world's tallest trees. The trees can grow over 90 meters tall. These landforms make Australia's landscape unique and recognizable. So, what about geological time periods? Australia's rocks represent almost the entire history of Earth. The oldest rocks are about 4.4 billion years old. The Earth itself is about 4.6 billion years old. Australia has rocks from the Archean Eon. This was from 4 to 2.5 billion years ago. The Pilbara region has many Archean rocks. Australia has rocks from the Proterozoic Eon. This was from 2.5 billion to 541 million years ago. The Yilgarn Craton has many Proterozoic rocks. Australia has rocks from the Phanerozoic Eon. This started 541 million years ago and continues today. The Phanerozoic includes the Paleozoic, Mesozoic, and Cenozoic eras. The Blue Mountains have Paleozoic sandstone. The Great Artesian Basin has Mesozoic sedimentary rocks. Many Australian fossils come from Mesozoic rocks. Australia has few Cenozoic rocks compared to other continents. This is because Australia has been geologically stable. There has been little mountain building or volcanic activity. The stability means old rocks have been preserved. In other continents, older rocks have often been destroyed. Australia's geological record helps scientists understand Earth's history. The rocks show how the planet and life have changed over billions of years. Finally, let's talk about global geographical significance. Australia plays an important role in understanding Earth's geography. Australia is a continent and a country. It's the only place where these two things are the same. Australia sits on the Indo-Australian Plate. This plate is moving north at about 7 centimeters per year. Australia separated from Antarctica about 45 million years ago. This separation created the Southern Ocean. The separation also affected global ocean currents. Australia's position affects global climate patterns. The continent blocks ocean currents between the Indian and Pacific Oceans. Australia is important for understanding continental drift. The theory was partly based on similarities between Australia and other continents. Australia has similar rocks and fossils to South America and Africa. Australia is isolated from other continents. This isolation has created unique plants and animals. About 80% of Australia's mammals are found nowhere else. Australia's deserts help scientists understand arid environments. The continent shows how life adapts to dry conditions. Australia's coral reefs are important for marine research. The Great Barrier Reef is studied by scientists worldwide. Australia's old rocks help scientists understand early Earth. The rocks show what the planet was like billions of years ago. Australia's flat landscape affects global weather patterns. The continent influences monsoons and ocean currents in the region. That's it for today. If you want to see more videos like these, subscribe to our channel